Just waiting for the YouTube stream to start. I don't know why it always takes a few minutes. So let's see if this actually works. God, I really hope I did the restream right. I always forget that. Damn it. Restream.io. Yo, iTrevor. Hey, bro. This actually works. Okay, I think we're in good news right now. It seems to be working. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why. I use Restream to get this on Twitter and Twitch, and I will hit the stream button. It'll take like a full-on minute before it hits the YouTube. Hits YouTube. Anyways, I think we're good here. We're good. So let me hit the chat. See if my Twidget's working. It's never working. No dice on that. Oh well. I got my Restream app. Okay, nice. Stream is good. Thank you, man. Yo, I appreciate that. I'm just going to give it a few minutes for some folks to come in. I appreciate you being here on time, man. It's because of you, this stream is getting off the ground. Now, just fair warning, dude, I had a miserable week, bro. I had to go back to the dentist 3 times after the extraction. And, dude, I had 2 dry sockets. So that means that they pulled out the teeth and the blood clot didn't form and cover the exposed bone, like it dissolved or something. And dude, I had like the worst, just like nerve pain, hot, cold, everything was just miserable. So finally this side's feeling good, but this side still hurts a little bit. But I got this medicine just before the stream, it came in, and I packed it in there. It's like clove and like this like fibrous clove to cover the socket. And it actually is working kind of, but I think it's making me feel a little loopy. So I just got to give fair warning. I really hope that, you know, I might have to rip this out midstream. Like I might have to take it out if the effects are too great. So I've kind of experimented with this new medicine thing right before the stream, but I think everything's going to be okay. Yo, Klaus, yo, let me give you guys a shout out for both of y'all. Appreciate you being in here. We got 2 things to react to today. We're going to be doing a reaction to Weak Men from It's Complicated Channel. That's new. But I found this earlier called The Kids Are Not Okay, The Nightmare Around Modern Dating. And I just wanted to react to that first because you'll see what I mean when I start reacting to it. It eventually is just like 4 women talking about the stuff the guys are doing wrong. So then after we watch that, we're going to get into Weak Men. And if it's really because men are weak. Yo, JP, welcome in, bro. Big shout out. You know, I got so many freaking, I got so many sound effects, and it's sad because, like, I only ever use, like, one of them. I use, like, 2 of them. I use, like, shout out and then that. But I really got to start using some more of these, so that needs to happen. Dude, it's been so rough, Klaus. I swear to God, I wish I could show you. But it's been so bad. If you guys ever get bored and want to read about dry socket, it's so incredibly painful. And I'm not going to sit here and lie. Like, I'm not some guy who can just take pain and tough it out. Unfortunately, like, when I feel pain, it's just like I'm miserable. So, sad but true. And having not 1 but 2 dry sockets was really bad. But I went to the dentist again yesterday, and they put in some treatment. So that, thankfully, is good. But yeah, it was just like a gel that kind of dissolved out, but this one feels a lot better. This one still kind of hurts, so I just jammed it with some stuff. It's been a wild freaking, it's been a couple of weeks, bro. Oh, and then my car got smashed up. So my dad the other day, on Sunday night, yo, Theron Frostbeard. I appreciate the subscribe, man. So that's actually from the Twitch right there. Theron Frostbeard is one of my good buddies. We used to play Super Mario Maker together on Twitch and play all kinds of fun Mario games. So, dude, it really is amazing to see you in here. So big shout out to you, Theron. Thank you, man. But anyways, yeah, so my wisdom teeth have been hurting like crazy. And let me tell you, so on Sunday night, I had already missed hella work. I'm finally going to go in Monday and try to do something. I'm watching paranormal alien videos on YouTube. That's what I do a lot. Like right before I fall asleep, I like to watch scary videos on YouTube. And bro, I was sleeping in my boxers, and all of a sudden I heard this like this tire screeching for a hell long. Oh shit. Hold on. I think we're having trouble with the stream. Oh crap. God, please work. I hope the stream didn't die. Didn't fall off. Sorry, my YouTube Studio was making it look like it didn't. The stream. YouTube Studio is so finicky. Oh my god. Anyways, if I can get a confirmation in there from one of y'all that you guys can still see me, that would make me very happy. Let me get my restream up. You know, stream is still fine. Perfect. Thank God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry again. This is just what I'm doing to myself today. Okay. Yes, so that's good. Beautiful. All right, anyways, man, so I'm in my boxers watching alien videos like usual. And I heard this loud, this car, and usually people do donuts on my intersection outside, and I hate the stupid donuts. But this car was coming in hot, and it lost control, and I was like, oh my God, that car is going to hit something. And then I heard a loud bap sound. Dude, I ran outside, bro, and this car just straight up smacked into my vehicle and messed it up. And it's a long story, but I had to deal with that. That was a long thing. And, you know, I got really, it was just a long story. But yeah, so my car's messed up. And my teeth are messed up. So it's just been kind of a period of transformation for me. And it was a hit and run, by the way. The guy took off, and I couldn't even get the guy. I just got like some ring footage showing the vehicle, like some grainy nighttime footage. But, you know, I reported it to the cops and everything. The cops came out on scene. They did an excellent job. They tried to find the vehicle, but that guy got away. So unfortunately, there's no insurance from the other guy. I'm going to have to just go through my insurance. It's just been a freaking nightmare. So yeah, it's been a week. But anyways, you know what? That's all good. I don't even care, man. I don't even care. Like, it's whatever. You know what I mean? The part that I didn't want to mention, but, you know, I'll just mention it, is my old man, you know, he came in to ask me to, because he wanted to go to the grocery store. So he took my car, and he parked it right where it was, and he was getting out of the vehicle. And this car smacked into it, so it caused some issues for my dad. He had to go to the ER. So dude, it's been super stressful, but I'm just grateful my dad's still with me. And, you know, that it could have been way worse in the sense of, like, I could have, you know. So I don't even want to talk about that, but I'm just very grateful that, like, it wasn't super bad. Yo, Mr. Pitt, great to see you in here, bro. Appreciate you. I was just explaining some of my wisdom teeth pain. But anyways, yeah, y'all heard enough about that. Let's get into the video. So I'm going to save this. I'm kind of inspired by Coach because he'll usually put his main event later on down the thing. But I found this other video from MSNBC. So this is mainstream media. And this came out 2 weeks ago. And this is a show called Morning Mika. And she says the kids are not okay. The nightmare around modern dating. Yo, just another thing. I got 2 dry sockets, and I put this medicine that literally just came from Amazon. And it feels super potent. So I might have to get up midstream and, like, yank this stuff out if I start to feel like I'm getting overdosed by this, God forbid. So I didn't see any warnings that it's dangerous. I mean, I did read all the instructions, but if I stop the stream midway because I got to run to the bathroom and tweezer this out of that hole in my wisdom teeth, at least you guys will know why that is. So I thought this discussion was kind of interesting right here. And I think it's going to be a good prelude to the discussion that we're going to get into when we react to the weak men portion of this. So let's go ahead and see what this is about. Let's just get into this. I'm glad y'all are here.
On Morning Mika, the kids, and actually adults too, are not okay.
Also, I got to stop this every now and then, and if YouTube Studio gives me a warning that, like, they're going to cut my stream for copyright, then I'm going to have to stop. But hopefully MSNBC's cool and allows the reaction.
Percy?
Yeah?
Wait, your name's Percy?
Yeah?
Percy? Sorry, continue. Percy? Doesn't anyone anymore? That was Jennifer Lawrence in a scene from No Hard Feelings, finding a bunch of teens and 20-somethings glued to their phones at a house party. It underscores a
YouTube video audio too low. Yo, iTrevor, you're saving me right now. Thank you, bro. I'll put it up. Oh, shit. That's my problem right there. Okay. Yo, we might have a sound effects thing too loud.
A troubling reality right now. A growing number of younger Americans aren't dating. They're not hanging out. And no, they're not even hooking up. For so many women who want to date men, dating has become a total nightmare. And there are a number of reasons why.
Okay, so this is new, right? This is 2 weeks ago. And, you know, this is all stuff we're very familiar with. You know, we've seen the TikToks, we watched the videos. We know it's a problem. And, you know, of course, the video is going to center around women's issues with dating. You know, there's no, well, let's see what they say about the guy. I heard saying fair use will let the algorithm know the stream is not breaking any rules. Oh, man, that's a good idea. Well, yeah, fair use. I hear Code say that all the time. I didn't actually realize that the stream hears that and kind of uses that. But anyways, yeah, MSNBC Morning Mika, fair use. We got stuff to talk about this. So, again, 6 million subscribers on this. This is mainstream media talking about what's going on. And, you know, of course, it focuses on the issues that the women are having. But let's see what they got to say.
I'm Mika Brzezinski here with Simone Sanders-Townsend, Huma Abedin, and Jen Psaki.
So look at that. All right, so here's the panel. And, you know, there's not a single guy on this. And just as a quick aside, I don't know if you guys remember Huma Abedin, but I do. I don't know if you remember when Hillary Clinton was running against Trump back in what was that 2016, and Huma Abedin, I remember she was like an advisor for Hillary Clinton, or she was working on vice chair of Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign for president of the United States. So that's Huma Abedin. And what's even crazier about her is that, like, see, this is a 48-year-old woman, by the way. I mean, I don't know how old the rest of the people are on the panel, but it'd probably be nice if they had some younger women who are actually dealing with it. But whatever. But I don't know if you guys remember Anthony Weiner, but she was married to Anthony Weiner, which is a funny name. But there was controversy with this guy over like a sexting scandal. But this dude was like a U.S. congressman. New York's 9th congressional district. He was a Democrat, and he got caught sending sexually suggestive photos of himself to different women. And this is while he was married to Huma Abedin. This is not a flattering picture at all. Wikipedia really did her bad. And this like crashed. This was a huge problem for like trust in the Democratic Party. And then of course, you know, they lost to Trump, and Hillary lost, and it was just it was bad for them. But anyway, she ends up getting divorced to this guy after the sexting scandal. So I was surprised to see that she was still in the game. It's weird. Anyways, yo, Robert, welcome in, man. I gotta get another sound effect that isn't this. You know what? I think this works better for you. You do have a very royal nature, my good sir. Yo, Will, welcome in. Yeah, I'll give you the trumpet also. Anyways, Robert says, whoa, she was born in Kalamazoo, Michigan, the same year that I was born there. Oh, wow. That's cool that you're from Kalamazoo. And that's his name. To a 15-year-old, no less. To a 15-year-old. Huma Abedin was born to a 15-year-old? Is that what you said? Huh. I didn't realize that. Well, anyways, she's here to talk about the struggles around modern dating. So I don't know who these two are, but I just had to give you the background on her because I didn't even know she was still around after the whole Hillary Clinton, Anthony Weiner fiasco. But anyways, moving on.
I've heard from a lot of young women who want to date young men that there are none. Mm-hmm. There are no guys. They're trying to connect.
Yeah, there's no guys, right? Because, you know, 80% of guys off rip are invisible, right? So again, this is going to tie into weak men, right? You know, there are no guys. These poor women out here are trying their best, but the men are just not there.
They often use dating apps, but find a total lack of connection. And it seems that
they're all going after Chad and Tyrone, high value guys. They're getting pumped and dumped. That's going to be the lack of connection. Theron Prosper says, well, I'm here.
the men they are meeting don't really share the same priorities.
See, right there. Okay, I'm sorry to stop it so often, but it's like the same priorities. That is the top guys that are just out here pumping and dumping. And that might even be top 20 all the time. That might just be guys who are like, this ain't worth the risk at this point, because now, as you know, the manosphere awareness is getting out there. Maybe even the soft guy types are just like, yeah, I mean, I'm down to date you, but not like that. So
if they show up, women, especially career-driven women,
they prize performative masculinity over actual connection. During sex, they focus on dominance rather than her pleasure. Now, this concept of performative masculinity I find interesting, right? Because, you know, you got to think about it. It's like, for a while, we were upset about, like, undercover feminists, right? And that was an episode that It's Complicated did, right? And it's women that kind of pretend that they want to be a good wife until the guy marries them. And then it's just all downhill from there. Like 4 or 5 years later, the undercover feminist comes out. She destroys the marriage, and they're screwed. This, I kind of feel like they're complaining about almost the same concept, but the other way, right? So Red Pill comes on the fray, explains the game to men about what's really going on. We figure out about the praying mantises and all that. And now what men are doing is they figured out what women are attracted to. So they're putting forward a front of like, hey, I'm a traditional masculine man. But they're actually undercover red pillars to contrast to undercover feminists, right? So it's like they get these women into bed. But then when it comes time to give the women what they really want on the back end, which is marriage and getting tied down with the marriage contract, the undercover red pillar comes out and it's just like, you know what? I'm going to exercise my other options. So that would be the performative masculinity that is currently subverting and making modern dating for women hard.
Men say the men they're meeting are...
Theron Frosper says, I've been talking to someone who told me that good sex is the deciding factor. It was refreshing. I mean, you know, if the bedroom isn't there, then, you know, I would say, yeah, the relationship probably isn't going to last. That's how I feel about it anyway. Some people stay together for the kids, but on a long enough timeline, dead bedroom's going to be an issue. So that probably leads to cheating and all these kinds of things.
Are more interested in sex and not looking for a deeper connection, and that it's becoming more and more of a problem. So what's changing? Because not that long ago, people used to meet each other through work, let's be honest, or through friends, maybe at a bar or in a college campus. And it gave...
You know, I will say, I'm actually always kind of surprised when people meet each other through work. And this might be a generational difference. I'm a millennial. So I kind of, maybe it was the Me Too stuff or whatever, but I always had this feeling of like dating or anything romantic at work is like a huge no-no. Like you absolutely do not want to do that whatsoever. And that's always been my attitude towards it. But maybe the generation before me was way different. So that was kind of a surprising thing.
People a chance to actually learn about each other, to break through the filters, to demonstrate kindness and show commitment and values, to actually earn affection. But today, so many people are living life through a screen. They're not going out nearly as much, not to church, not to movies, or even to the office. Opportunities to fall in love are falling by the wayside, meaning
there's a sickness where we don't see people as people because of the apps. We always think there's something better out there. Hey, you know what? If this applies to the women also, then I got to give them credit for taking some accountability for that because, well, yeah, I mean, that's what it is. They're inundated by choice. One of the other 80% of guys that they can probably get with who might even be willing to settle down, they kind of look over that guy or they break things off because they're constantly trying to get to, you know, that dream ideal guy. Klaus says, not too long ago, I thought we had the apps for some time. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point there. I guess this woman is out of the game. I think a lot of the women in here are out of the game. This Mika lady seems like she's older. Huma Abedin's 48. So it's like, I don't even think she was using the apps back in her day. The other two women, I'm not sure about their age, but I don't think they're in the game either. So it's kind of a strange interview panel. I just thought this is noteworthy because it's mainstream media.
People are making decisions by swiping left on their smartphones rather than truly learning to connect. The highs, the lows, the disappointments, all of that stuff. It's all part of the process. And it's affecting mental health too. According to a recent study of people over the age of 18, those who used swipe-based dating apps experienced significantly higher rates of psychological distress, anxiety, and depression. Another study showed a link between using dating apps and experiencing loneliness, dissatisfaction with life, and this is a big one, a feeling of exclusion from the world, feeling so left out.
Here we go. See what this says. Women believe their romantic priorities are fundamentally different from those of guys their age. I hope they get into that more, because I want to hear exactly what they mean about that. Because listen, man, I mean, you know, we all see the women who are on the apps, especially in their early mid-20s, and they're out there just running through guys and having a good time. You know what I mean? Because they're not worried about it until they hit a slightly older age. Seeing how this panel's a little bit older, they're probably going to try to say like, oh, we're all looking for marriage and connection, but the guys are out here just trying to have fun. But really, right, that they're talking about like a small minority of the guys who are actually able to get it in. But it's just interesting to hear that and kind of think about both sides sort of accusing each other of that. SBDA, now that's a new one. SBDA, I'm not sure what that is. It stands for exactly, but I might have missed it.
And when women do go to coffee shops, what we're hearing is that they try, or to a club or the grocery store or anything where they get out and interact with people, they say the men that they want to meet just don't.
The men that they want. Oh, sorry, man. I got such a problem in my neighborhood where people just have to like blow up fireworks a week before July 4th comes. And so if you guys hear any, and they're all illegal fireworks, of course, like they just sound hella crazy and dangerous. So if you hear that, that's what that is. I even damn lost my train of thought, man.
Share their ideals.
Oh yeah, the coffee shop guys that they want to meet, right? So it's like they're hoping that like their dream guy comes and talks to them in a coffee shop, but amongst the Me Too movement and everything, like it's approaching hasn't been the same.
It's partly because so many young men are spending their life.
All right. It's now this is where we get to it's the men's fault, right? So many of the guys she meets suffers from what she calls prawn brain. They prize performative masculinity over actual connection. Men that they want to meet, exactly.
Lives also logged in, overly influenced by a flood of whatever you can find online, porn, video games, toxic masculinity. Who needs the real thing when you can get something better, and I put that in quotes, by scrolling? Here's what Scott Galloway, professor of marketing at NYU, told us on Morning Joe about some of the reasons why men are becoming like this.
I think you have the most talented, well-resourced people in the world and companies trying to convince a young man that he can have a reasonable facsimile of life in his basement behind a screen. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need to get a job. Go on Robinhood or Coinbase and trade crypto and stocks. You don't need to go through the rejection and the expense and the humiliation and working out and having a plan and humor and showering to get a romantic relationship. You have YouPorn.
Oh, God. See, you know, and again, it's like, I don't think guys suddenly just decide to start risking all the money they have on Robinhood just because they're nuts and it's been marketed. I think what happens is they're in a tough job market. The jobs that they do have aren't paying them enough to be a traditional provider. It's really hard. Then guys get desperate and they're like, you know what? Like, let me invest all my money in GameStop. And if I'm lucky, then maybe I can get that house that I need to be able to fulfill these masculine roles. And then he talks about rejection. I think a lot of the guys that end up kind of just looking at stuff online or signing up for the OnlyFans or whatever, they're guys that have just been rejected over and over and over again. But, you know, I hope, you know, he's making it seem like it's just like the guys find that and then they give up before they ever tried. I do believe they're trying to some extent. Theron says, if this is what people believe, then dating should be so easy. Just be nice. Yeah, exactly. But then they're getting rejected, right? So it's like those same women on that panel are rejecting the guys, but they're gonna make it seem like, well, the men aren't trying hard enough, right? They're being weak men. Mr. Pitt says, Boys just want to have fun. Oh, boys. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? There's a reason it's girls just want to have fun. Good point.
So we have an entire generation, especially of young men, who are out home sequestering from society and missing out on what it means. You know, there's a reason romantic.
I hope that they mention one of those reasons for romantic relationships dying is also because of feminism, right? Like they're talking about these things for guys, but it's like, has anybody mentioned feminism or those changes?
Comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. True victory in life is hard. Going out, meeting someone, finding mentors, finding mates.
You just need to try harder. You got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, even though, you know, it's never been worse. Hoflation, all these kinds of things. Like, and you know, I can, for the self-improvement gurus out there, it's like, I can give it to them. Like, yes, some people will make it by trying really hard and competing. There are going to be some winners, but there's never been more losers and less winners than there is now.
That stuff is hard, but that's what real victory in real life is like. And because a lot of men feel rejected on dating apps, the number of jobs that are accessible to them has gone down. You have essentially a group of men who are saying, I want to...
At least he mentions the rejection on dating apps and the
low-risk entry into life, and they go down a rabbit hole. When they don't have social connections, they don't...
He says low-risk entry into life, but at the same time, if you're on Robinhood betting like half your money or all your money, that's high risk. I think a lot of guys are taking high-risk actions to try to make this happen for themselves. I mean, being a passport bro, leaving, those are all high. You know, I don't know if that's high risk necessarily, but it's taking a big risk, leaving your friends and family and your network at home in order to go try to find greener pastures elsewhere. Klaus says, this is hilarious how the MSM is desperately trying to give it a spin that fits their narrative. But reality is not going away anytime soon. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but what this is just constant still blaming of men. Let's see what they say about the women.
Get out and they don't have the prospect of a romantic relationship. They're more prone to conspiracy theory. They're more prone to misogynistic content. They're less likely to believe in climate change. And some become really bad citizens. We are producing too many of the most dangerous person in the world, and that is a young, broke, and lonely young man.
Man, you hear that? Doesn't that sound kind of like, it almost sounds like a demonization. Like if you're a young man and you're struggling in this way, like you might as well just be a demonized or be a villain. It's just like you're just like dangerous to society. You know, a guy goes MGTOW, he's dangerous. Marriage is higher risk than Robinhood. That's a great point.
Wow. As Professor Galloway pointed out, 1 in 3 relationships used to begin at work. Now young people are not going into the office as often. And if you are...
Robert says less likely to believe in climate change. I know, that was... It presupposes the liberal progressive worldview. And like, hey, that's fine, whatever, however you feel about it. But to me, it admits that they don't care about young men. So it's like if the young men that are left out are gravitating more towards, you know, misogynistic content, like, of course they're going to find Andrew Tate when Andrew Tate is the only one that's speaking to them. If the manosphere is the only place where these guys who feel like they're being told they're not good enough, they're being told they're not trying hard enough, they find Andrew Tate and whoever. To me, it's just an indictment on the fact that, like, whoever is more closer to mainstream has just completely forgotten about men and doesn't care about them. Like, yeah, of course they're going that way.
A young man at work, are you more or less inclined to express some sort of romantic interest in a potential partner now than you were 40 years ago? The answer.
Well, it's different now because there's more risk now. I mean, you know, guys that are probably having jobs like that are you know, maybe lucky enough to have them. Like, even me, when I was working in an office, like I wouldn't dare do that. It's just not worth it to me because I don't want to end up in HR or whatever. I'd much rather go out with the chick that I met like on the dating app or something, and she's far away from what I do. I don't have to, especially if it doesn't work out. Theron Frostbird says, I can agree with the meeting people at work thing. It is so much easier to get to that point with prolonged content. It must have been different back then, you know what I mean? And I've seen people meet at work. I just think if you're a millennial or younger, you're less likely to, because I think it's a little risky, you know what I mean? I hope that maybe that's really how it was, and that's how people got married and stuff.
There's clearly No. And by the way, men and women have been told in many places that if you have feelings for someone at work, you have to go to HR first. That'll kill the moment. And
at least, hey, I gotta give her credit for bringing that up. Robert Spencer says, I met my second ex-wife at work. It used to be much safer. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I know you're a few years older than us, not by a lot, but you're like one generation prior to us. So yeah, probably just was normal back then to some extent. The way I was raised, I was just, at least what I saw in the media growing up, I just thought it was dangerous to do that. I was like, oh yeah, you definitely don't do that. But it's even surprising to me because I didn't realize like it was better than that. Now that I think about it, I met my first ex-wife at work too. I guess it was more normal then.
I get why that's the policy. I get how we got here. Having said that, the unforeseen consequences of the Me Too movement, or of Me Too in general, and the problems that began the movement, that's a show we need to do at some.
I swear, it's like, I just can't help but notice it's three women. It's probably hard for them to find a guy that wants to go on there. Like, first of all, they're not going to want like a manosphere dude on there. And if you're like a normal guy with a normal career that has some notoriety that they want on the show, you're going to be less likely to probably be very candid about what's wrong with everything. Because, I mean, if he says something in this panel and it goes wrong, that guy can lose his job the next day. So it might not even be worth it to appear on this panel and be, straightforward with them. Darren says, it should be normalized to be able to talk to people if you like them. Yeah, it shouldn't be a big deal. I mean, the very least you can voice it, whatever. If they rebuff your advances, then as long as you don't, I guess, keep barking up that tree and make it uncomfortable for them.
Point. And we have to have a really honest conversation about that. But that's not this show. I'm just saying, having to go to HR.
I love that she brings up Me Too and HR. And she's like, we should have a long, honest conversation about that. But that's not this show. Even though that directly has to do with the topic of their show about why, these men aren't talking to people at work to try to start romantic relationships. Darren says, yeah, never overdo it. Yeah, absolutely.
Is kind of a hard start. Jen, why don't you start? What are the biggest concerns you have here?
Yeah, look, Mika, first of all, I met my husband at work at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. He asked me out over email and brought me ice cream. It was a much more traditional way of meeting someone. Look, I think the biggest concern I have here is the mental health impact on young people. And we've seen that in statistics and a ton of reporting about the disconnect. And you just went over a fair amount of it for men, certainly, and also for women. And I just think anecdotally of talking to a lot of women I work with, who I have the pleasure of working with on my team, they, men and women have been wanting to just have sex for decades, right? That's not new. I think they're still probably they're hooking up still, right? But it's more about that deeper connection. And as Scott said, relationships are work. Emotional connections are work, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever it may be, or a mentor relationship. And there's such a...
I just can't help but think about this, because it's like, they're just like, well, they're hooking up still, but they don't want to do the work of the relationship. And to me, it just signals again that they're going for this top sector of men that have so many options that they can afford to just hook up and hook up and hook up. And it's like their dream is to get that guy to be able to understand the quote unquote value of a relationship, a long-term one, which has been done to death anyways, especially under the current laws. And they're basically saying that those guys who are just hooking up with them, that they're hooking up with, don't want to do the hard work of the relationship. But the fact is that these women have killed the market for themselves, because they're making it easy for this guy to hook up with a bunch of chicks. And then when it comes to like the rest of the guys who probably would get married to them, they're completely ignoring it. But they're not even seeing those guys. They're just talking about the ones that are pumping and dumping them.
A cotton candy aspect of the world we're living.
So on the one hand, the men are addicted to prawn and they're playing video games, whatever. They don't want the real thing. But then right here, she's going to say on the same vein that they're just hooking up with people. So it's like, which is it? There's this clear dichotomy between the two groups of men they're talking about.
in right now, that's also a fantasy world, right? You mentioned porn, that's of course on the sex side, but it's also just how people portray themselves on social media. It's not connected to the difficulty and the struggle that often you have to go through in order to have the most rewarding relationship, the most rewarding friendships, the most rewarding mentorships. And
I do wish she would expound a bit on the difficulties of relationships that she's referring to, because the accusation is that, okay, these guys are with these women and they're just hooking up, but then something difficult happens and then the men don't want to deal with it because they're being weak men, quote unquote, and then they just wash their hands of it. But it's like, what is the difficulty that they're talking about? Is this the same difficulty that these same men's fathers and grandfathers had to deal with? Or is this the new difficulty of dealing with the new modern woman? Will says, good insight. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So it's just like, okay, yeah, they're talking about the difficulty, but tell us about the difficulty.
The mental health impact is the biggest concern, because connection is what makes life joyful.
I wonder if any of these people are actually trying to date while using these apps. That's a great question. We know she isn't, because she's married and she met this guy over email from her work and he got her ice cream. Huma Abedin, you can read about her on Wikipedia. She was married to Anthony Weiner for so long until, the sexting scandal, and then she got divorced. So I don't think she was using the apps, or she didn't grow up with that. I'm not really sure who she is. Maybe she's using the apps, maybe not. But I think she's possibly married. She seems older. So I think at least 3 out of 4 of these people aren't really on the apps.
And that to me is what I worry about the most.
Yes, Simone, Americans are more lonely and isolated than ever. There's data on this. And what do you make of Professor Galloway's remarks on Morning Joe that we're producing too many of the most dangerous people in the world?
You hear that? Like, if you are a young guy and you're single, you're dangerous. If you're young and you're not rich and you don't got a girlfriend, man, people need to be afraid of you. You're a ticking time bomb. Isn't that another way of saying, like, sex is a need? You know what I mean? Like it's almost like young men need sex, and if they don't get that, and if they don't get affection, relationships, love is a need. And if they don't get that, like, you're dangerous to society. Like, society should just cash in all of you guys and just send you guys to the front line. Just get, Ukrained out of here, because you're a real threat. Terrence says, I like being dangerous. Robert says he showed his wiener to a 15-year-old. Is that what he did? Oh, I didn't realize it was mine. Oh, that's terrible. Oh my God, I can't even blame Huma Abedin for divorcing him. Then that's bad.
Young, broken, lonely men.
Mika, I thought that a lot of Professor Galloway's comments were interesting. I listened to the whole segment twice yesterday because, one, I think that people are going out. And also, I don't think that I didn't meet my husband at work. I actually met my husband going out. I was at an event. After the event.
Okay, so she's married too, now we know, and she didn't meet him on a dating app. So depending on how old she is, she might be prior to the dating app. So it could be that all 4 of these women are not dating app women, and they're the ones commenting on this. So I don't know. I'm stealing your craned out here. Thank you, man. Man, JP, I don't know why. Every time I see your name, I'm like, is that Jordan Peterson in my chat? Sorry, man. All right.
Some folks introduced, at the time, he was what was known in Washington, D.C. as the Nightmare. And some folks that I know asked me, oh, do you know the Nightmare? I said, I've heard of him. I do not know him. I've never.
So her husband literally had a nickname called the Moniker, had a moniker called the Nightmare. That right there is another thing. That proves that women are attracted to the bad boy. I mean, if you're a young guy and people call you the Nightmare, how are you not the bad boy? I mean, you're up at night. Klaus says, Shy, you're the dangerous outlaw. Now it turns out we are too. I know. I don't know, man. I don't know if you guys should be associating with me, man. I'm a bad influence on you guys. The dangerous men. God, I don't know. It's crazy that they would admit that here. You know what I mean? But then all they got for the guys is like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You just got to try harder. There's nothing wrong with the women. It's all your fault. You guys are doing this. Oh, good, Klaus. Robert says, we've never used dating apps, but they're awful. Exactly. That's basically what they're saying. Trevor says, these women are female version of the Daily Wire crew. Well, they might as well be, except, yeah, that's what it is. It's like the progressive left. It's the same, like, out of tune level that you hear from the Daily Wire when they talk about this stuff, except it's from, like, the opposite progressive left side, right? And then it's like, then they wonder why young men, these young, broke, dangerous men, are going to be attracted to, you know, the manosphere types, right? Man, I remember when Joe Rogan was new, and I remember when a lot of young guys were finding Joe Rogan, and I remember when the mainstream media was coming after Joe Rogan. And it's like, when you look back at Joe Rogan's not even that bad compared to, like, Andrew Tate or something. Heck, you can even say Joe Rogan is, like, a progressive to some extent. It's just that, you know, young men resonated with them because we had nothing else. I used to love listening to Joe Rogan. And then after Joe Rogan, the next bad guy was Jordan Peterson. You remember when Jordan Peterson was getting big, and they started going after Jordan Peterson. And the thing is they successfully took Jordan Peterson down, because what they did is they gave him the Daily Wire contract. So the Daily Wire took Jordan Peterson away from us, you know, and now that he's paid from them, he's under their umbrella. You know, to some extent, he's got to be loyal to their talking points to some extent, right? So they took Jordan Peterson away, and then Andrew Tate came on the way. And, you know, I can't sit here and endorse Andrew Tate. I mean, he is like the Barbie standard, but for the guys, right? This, like, when women complain about, like, the high beauty standard, which created feminism damn near in the first place, Andrew Tate is like the masculine version of that. He's this hyper masculine Bugatti driving guy, whatever. And it just got, every time they canned somebody and tried to cancel them, the next iteration of the masculine guy just got crazier and crazier, you know. Anyways, yeah, moving on. Guys, I might have to run to the bathroom and just rip out this thing. It's pretty strong, but we're going to keep going.
Had the pleasure, and that was the I like to say we've been dating ever since. I think he might take issue with my timeline. So I would argue that people are going out in different social settings, but I also think the apps, for example, are not terrible. One of my best girlfriends met her husband on the apps. You know, I know a lot of people who are meeting folks on the apps, and it is opening up, frankly, the world of the dating pool bigger than just who comes to your neighborhood bar or who you might see in the office. And so I think that is a good thing. Look, I think about these lonely, broke, dangerous men. I don't really know, Mika. I'm not sold on the lonely, broke, and dangerous men. I think that we are producing a generation of younger people who do not have hustle and drive and the
Man, I swear to God, I almost really liked what she said. I thought she was going to say, like, hey, I'm not sold on this idea because I don't think we should be demonizing young men as, like, lonely, broke, and dangerous. But she is kind of going towards the whole, you know, they're not working as hard. They don't want to work. And we're producing a generation of these lazy individuals who don't know how to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. So that seems to be the direction she's going to take. But, you know, she needs to talk about other stuff, right? Like, I don't believe the prior generation of men had anything different in their DNA than what we do now. But what they did have was a job market where they did not have to compete with women taking half the jobs away and cutting the wages in half and wage stagnation, right? Because these companies have twice the labor pool and the higher demand for labor, right? So there's all these other economic factors as a result of feminism that have occurred. I mean, no-fault divorce didn't help. Your grandfather didn't have to worry about that. So it's just like, to sit here and just say men aren't working hard enough is to just gaslight men into enabling the problem more so by saying, hey, work hard and give us your money, basically.
Lack of hustle and drive, one is where I do agree with Professor Galloway, in that, you know, there's a younger generation of people.
And it's just like, okay, there's not this hustle and drive amongst men, but it's like, what about all these women that make all this money? It's like, why don't you ask Huma Abedin if she pays for half the mortgage with Anthony Weiner? I mean, you know what I mean? What about this lady and her husband? Like, what makes a successful marriage for them is I mean, she's obviously a career woman. Like, did she put half the down payment for the house now that housing prices are at what they are? Like, forget about talking about the men aren't trying hard enough. Why not ask these women, like, so what are you guys doing different that's different from traditional provider relationships? Are you paying for half of it? Are you paying the majority of the bills? Like now that you're working and taking jobs away from men, taking college seats away from men, you know, like what about that conversation?
Who would rather be home than go out and socialize.
Right.
But I think the idea that folks are not going out, that folks are not socializing is not true. More so, I think it's that the pool of men that women would like to date is smaller. There's more women than men. It has always been.
See, the pool of women are, yo, Caesar Quintana, big shout out to you, man. I appreciate the donation. Caesar Quintana says, I love how both liberals and tradcons talk about relationship issues. Somehow they both blame red pill-minded men. No accountability for all the leftover harlots. Yeah, it's exactly what it is, right? And that's why guys gravitate to, you know, these grifter types. Let's just be honest. Like, that's how they end up in Hustlers University and all this kind of stuff, because it's just like they're both just blaming men. You're not trying hard enough. She literally was just saying right before your super chat about how the pool for men is smaller and smaller. And that's like outright admitting that's like, okay, you're a career woman, but you still want this smaller percentage of men that are in the higher echelons that can still pay for everything for you and give you a traditional life. That's the only reason the pool has shrunk. If they were going to come in and say, listen, I make 80 grand a year, you make 70 grand a year. I'm 27 now, and since 18, I've been to college, and I got my first job at 23, 24. I've saved $80,000. It's tough out here. You saved 70 grand. That's great. Let's put our money together. Let's get this house together. It's not that. It's just, oh, the pool of men has shrunk. Well, what the hell's going on? So I had to share this interview with you guys because it just seems to prove a lot of the stuff we're talking about.
That way, when I moved to Washington, D.C., that's what everyone said. It's like, for every one guy, there's 10 women that want to date him. So
exactly, because which guy is that?
There's that.
Yeah. Well, I see the numbers that you're talking about. I really connect with your reticence about the lonely, broken, dangerous. I guess the inference that you have to have a woman to fix that, like you can fix that yourself, and not be, I hear you about personal responsibility for sure.
I wish she would have said, I hear you, and that we shouldn't demonize broke, lonely men, because they're calling them dangerous for society isn't right. But instead she goes to, well, they should fix that themselves by working harder, and that it's not on that. So it's like, and the only reason she's saying that is because if she says that part of the validation those men needs is for women, then she has to walk down this road of asking, what are the women doing differently? How have the women contributed to this smaller dating pool of men that's available? What's different about women now? But it's like, they can't do that at all costs. Instead, it should be, well, yeah, that's right. I mean, they should be solving that problem on their own. Klaus says, drizzle, drizzle. Exactly. Dating pool gets bigger. Anyone ever wonder why they call it a pool? That's an interesting question. And for some reason, the only thing I could think about when you say that is like someone at a big party in like Las Vegas in a pool and wondering how many people peed in the water because they've been drinking or something and didn't want to get out. That's nasty. All right.
But I'm seeing in my world and hearing from a lot of young people who work with me, who work for me, who just, they don't go out as much. There's like nowhere to go or no one to go with, or it's the same old every time, and they're on the phones so much. And whom I'm wondering, given the consequences of loneliness and isolation.
Okay, so now she's bringing Huma Abedin into this, and this was the vice whoever for the Hillary 2016 election campaign. So let's see what she's got to say. Married to Anthony Weiner, now divorced.
From a policy perspective, because the Surgeon General recently declared the loneliness is an epidemic. Is there an obligation on the part of our government or policies to address some of these growing social disconnects that are happening in our country?
So, I mean, I agree with so much. My mind is just spinning with thoughts hearing all three of you. And I'm glad you referenced the Surgeon General, because the four of us talk about this a lot, that we are pioneers. We're raising a generation, surrounded by technology that we just didn't have access to growing up, and we're still seeing the short and long-term impact.
And one thing, it's like they want to blame technology, and I do believe technology has had an effect on this, but the other, you can even call it legal technologies of like no-fault divorce, the child support system, all these kinds of things has also had like this effect on let's just say marriage and divorce rates, right? Like a lot of these guys they're complaining about also are raised by single moms. They've seen their parents get divorced. You know, if you're a kid and you see your parents get divorced, you think, I don't want to deal with that, especially if you're a guy and you see what happened to your dad or something like that. So it's not even just dating apps. Like there's all these other things.
Impact of that. I love that you just mentioned the Surgeon General report. We talk about it in the context of just this. We're talking about it.
Yo, here's the Surgeon General. And I feel like Huma Abedin's been talking for about a minute now, and I don't think she's said anything other than I'm glad you brought up the Surgeon General report. Loneliness poses health risks as deadly as smoking, U.S. Surgeon General says. Well, there's another way of saying, sex is a need. Companionship is a need. Literally, the Surgeon General is saying it poses health risks if you're lonely. So, okay. And this could also be another way to gaslight guys into getting married, right? Well, it's just like if you don't get married and sign on the dotted line, like, oh my God, you can get cancer all of a sudden because the Surgeon General said so. So they're going to hold that over your heads and beat you with that threat, basically.
Yeah. When you look at things like smoking, it's not that we think people are going to quit smoking or stop using tobacco, but when you buy a cigarette, it will say there's a warning that this is bad for your health. I was at an office meeting the other day and I saw, a box saying, here's, if you need Narcan, it's, it's in this lockbox, get help. It's not that we think people are going to stop using drugs and that there might never be an overdose again. We are aware of it. We have a solution to it. And this is all part of public policy and the importance.
So she's talking about, now if I'm hearing her right, she's kind of saying like the dating apps are a kind of cigarette type thing and that they need Surgeon General warnings on it. I don't know if that's what she's saying exactly, but she claims to have a solution. And I don't know if putting a warning on this is going to make it any better. Darren says there are way too many things going on to make people keep babies. Secular World, yo, welcome in Secular World. Appreciate you. Speaking in generalities helps no one in these cases. Yeah, it doesn't. Well, frankly, it's just lip service at this point. Klaus says it's easier to just blame the phone than addressing the issues. Yeah, exactly. Women should come with that warning. Exactly. Yeah. The warning should be like on the marriage certificate and be like, if you sign this, you have an increased chance of self-deletion than if you remain single if you get divorced. That should be the freaking warning. Secular World says they're saying men this and men that, but never make suggestions. They don't. I got a feeling it seems to me I keep calling her Huma Abedin was listening to these three people talk for like 20 minutes or 10 minutes, and she like zoned out for a second, and now like she's on the hot seat and she doesn't remember what to say or what she was going to say.
Of having public policy. And I think to have that 80+ page report, number one, you have a Surgeon General who addresses his own issues with loneliness, deep feelings of loneliness, and what governments can do. And
are you telling me this, did she just say this Surgeon General guy right here is lonely himself? Wow. This guy is the Surgeon General of the United States of America, and he's lonely. I'd be very interested to hear what happened to his. You know what? I'm going to see if I can look this up. Let me see if I can find U.S. Surgeon General. I want to see if I can find like his wiki and if it mentions if he's married or not. Vice Admiral Vivek H. Murthy. All right, let's see what's up with this guy. Come on, guys. Give me the wiki. Give me the personal life on the wiki. All right, here we go. All right, here's this gentleman here. Okay. I mean, he's got a spouse, Alice Chen. Okay. He's got 2 kids. And I mean, listen, man, is this guy's loneliness the same loneliness of, a young man who can't figure his way out in the world? I don't know if his loneliness experience is going to be the same, but whatever. Let's just say he experienced loneliness. Let's just give it to him. Personal life. Murthy is married to Alice Chen, an internist who trained at Yale, Cornell, and UCLA, and was the executive director of Doctors for America. They have 2 children. On February 18, 2022, Murthy revealed on Twitter that he, his wife, and 5-year-old son have all been infected by COVID-19. Earlier in the same week, Murthy revealed that his 4-year-old daughter had been infected. All had mild symptoms and no respiratory issues. Okay, here's Alice Chen. Studied biology at Yale University. Plays violin and piano. Does Chinese... Okay, so she had a tiger mom. All right, and she's just done everything. Went to Yale. Okay, well, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know. What I thought I was going to find was that this guy was single and somehow, the Surgeon General of America, but he's married with 2 kids. So I'm not really buying his loneliness thing that much, unless it's a really bad marriage.
Schools and communities and
Robert says, no offense, but I can sort of see why he's lonely.
Parents can do. And to both what Jen and Simone just said, I think about this. I met my ex-husband at work.
Okay, that's going to be Anthony Weiner. So she met Anthony Weiner at work. He was a former congressman, by the way. So he was possibly a congressman, and she might have been somehow working with the congressman and was like, hey, let's get married.
And I met my current boyfriend, and I will say, in a period where I was feeling very lonely and was
Okay, so she's 48. She's not remarried again, but she does have a current boyfriend.
Invited to this party. I did not want to go. I just wanted to stay at home and just probably be on my phone, watch The Diplomat or something. I dragged myself to that party, and that is how I met him. And so it's we have to talk about it, but we also have to be open to experiences. Sometimes even at our generation, we have to push ourselves to do it.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Huma, because
I wonder who Huma Abedin's new boyfriend is. I don't know why. I just gotta see, It sounds like she met him at a hoity-toity kind of, rich politician circle party. So, he probably was not the cashier at the local co-op. Oh my God. Huma Abedin enjoyed a sleepover with boyfriend Alex Soros. Sounds suspiciously related to another Soros, whose name might start with the George, after making their 2024 Met Gala debut. Well, I mean, if you're meeting people over there. Huma Abedin leaves boyfriend Alex Soros' New York City apartment. I don't know why. I have to find out if this guy is related to George Soros. Oh, damn it. Oh, my God. I'm having issues. Oh, my God. Just a second, guys. I gotta pull this up. The chat. I gotta pull up the chat. There we go. Alex Soros. Who is Alex Soros? If he's like the son of George Soros or something, I'll be like, of course she's going out with this dude. He's an American investor. One of the 5 sons of the billionaire George Soros. Here it is. That's what I was looking for. Okay. She met her new boyfriend, who's like literally an heir to the George Soros guy. Okay. Yeah, it's just so hard to find a boyfriend out here. I got so lucky I just went to this gala or whatever the heck it was. There's just something very strange about this story that I'm not all the way on board with. You have these very elitist people talking about dating for like the normal people. And this is why Hillary Clinton lost, by the way. You know what really weirded me out about Hillary Clinton? When she was running for office, every time I saw Hillary Clinton, and I'm sure, listen, I get it. I'm sure Trump wears $5,000 suits. But Hillary Clinton looked like she just wore $10,000, $15,000 like suits. And every single hair of hers was just perfectly in place. And it just creeped me out because I was just like, this person has no understanding of what the average person's life is like. Like, this person has just been so rich and elitist like her whole, and he's 10 years younger than her. Wow, I didn't even catch that. Oh my God. Anyways, I don't know. These people are so freaking out of touch at this point. It's no wonder the Titanic is going down. Robert says, she stood against landmines. That's actually pretty brave. Robert Spencer, so long as he isn't 15 years old. Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, that's better than that. And he's 10 years younger than her. Well, yeah, there you go. Klaus says, maybe we all should just drag ourselves to the Met Gala. Exactly. Like, dude, if you would just stop playing video games and like looking at the OnlyFans site and just go to the Met Gala, maybe you'd meet someone. Like, that's part of the hard work of relationship building. Like, just go to the Met Gala already. Also, and if you can also just be one of the 5 sons of George Soros, the billionaire, that can probably also help you. So, I mean, that's another question in itself. For some reason, he decides to go out with 48-year-old Huma Abedin. Listen, she ain't a bad-looking woman. I get it. But one of the 5 sons of billionaire George Soros found, you know, love with this woman who was divorced from Anthony Weiner, surrounded by controversy, and also has, I think, 1 or 2 kids with Anthony Weiner. But whatever. Okay, that's her boyfriend. You know, she didn't say husband. So we'll see what happens with that.
And Simone, to your point that people are going out, they are, but there are a lot of people who are in Huma's position where they have to, it takes everything in them just to get out the door. And there's a growing number of cases.
Could you imagine being so depressed that it took everything to get out the door? Like, you were invited to the Met Gala of all places, and you're just like, oh, I feel so depressed. I don't want to go to the Met Gala and rub elbows with all these important people and interesting people and different celebrities and things. It's like, man, if someone invited me to the Met Gala, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm flying out there right now. I'd have like 2 sets of clothes already packed in the suitcase or whatever. I'd be like, oh, the Met Gala, this is amazing. This is way better than, you know, what I usually do on a Friday night.
Like that, where the phone and remote work, and you just get into such a, what's the word, a bad cycle.
A rut.
You don't want to go out anymore.
Yeah.
A rut.
It makes me think
Simone.
about the importance of your friends and the people that know you best in your circle, because you are correct.
Yeah.
And you know, even sometimes I'm the friend that is dragging people out. It's like, no, come, you have to come. And if the friend hadn't dragged me, you know, it's, you know, I like to party. But it is the importance of the circle, and I think that that's maybe also something. If people are feeling this innate sense of loneliness, even if they know people that are their friends may not know. And so that's the importance of checking up on folks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and seeing them and feeling them and understanding and connecting. Up next,
Anyways, guys, we watched 14 minutes of this and it's about done, and we are nowhere closer to solving this problem. In fact, if this is what you were going off of, we're probably further away. Yo, big shout out to iTrevor with the $10 super chat. Women's advantages over men is societal. Men's advantage over women is being able to adapt to a solitary lifestyle better than women. I have heard that before. I think that's true. Like, men do better than women. I mean, I think being lonely probably sucks for everybody. But men, I think, are more adapted to be able to do that for longer periods. Men's advantage over women is being able to adapt to a solitary lifestyle better than women. Feminism abused their advantage, and men are responding accordingly. Yeah, they're responding accordingly, and now it's like, what weirds me out too is that, like, in the beginning of this thing, they'll be like, well, you know, men don't want to do the hard work of a relationship. They're not looking for the same things we are. And it's a gaslighting attempt to villainize men, right? It's like, what they're trying to say is, well, we're just being goody two-shoes out here. We're just looking for a relationship that we can settle down and get married. And these guys are just looking to hook up. But the other side of that is like, that's not true. They're completely ignoring the guys that would settle with them. That do probably like them, and they're going for these, you know, what's the main character of that damn 50 Shades of Grey novel? It's not Dorian Gray. That's from that well-renowned novel about youth. Whatever the heck, Gray, you know what I mean? And it's just like, but they're making it seem like they're innocent in all this, and it's just like, you have choice, and they're not making the respectable choice. It's like, this woman, Huma Abedin, you can say has a successful career, but she has to go out with one of the sons of a billionaire. You know what I mean? And then, oh, thank God. Other than that, I wouldn't have met anybody. And it's like, I don't know who these people's husbands are, but so be it. We are cooked as a society. It ain't looking good, man. But, you know, we ain't giving up out here. We're not stopping, man. We got to figure out what to do next. That's the most important thing, man. I wanted to make a video about this. And I wanted to make a video about how the TradCons so far the red pillars have lost the battle against the tradcons over these last few months. I've seen Joker talking about he's going to start making political videos because he can't keep doing the same stuff. I saw Pearl put out a video on her Twitter saying if anybody has suggestions for content, or she's thinking about what content to make now because she doesn't want to do what she's usually doing. FNF is demonetized. Pearl got demonetized. Access Vegas got demonetized. And it's just like the whatever, or not the whatever, but it's just like, I was thinking whatever podcast because he's the only one that hasn't been demonetized. But whatever podcast has been hijacked by tradcons at this point. Let's just be honest. So anybody that's like left representing the red pill is either on a Homeland Security list. It ain't looking good. And what I was thinking to myself was like, we need to talk about what to do next. The collective red pill rage phase is over. We all know what women are doing. We've seen enough videos about the outrageous stuff. We have to figure out what happens after red pill rage and focus on that for content. It ain't over till it's over is what I'm trying to say. Oh, Christian Gray. That's what it was. Robert says, I dig being alone. No one to interrupt my video games and spend my money on stupid ass. Yeah, well, I hear that, man. Listen, I'm just going to run to the bathroom real quick, and then we're going to look at the comments on this video. I just got to pull out this thing that I packed into that hole where my wisdom tooth used to be, just because I want to take a sip of water, and I don't want to swallow that thing. So I'll be right back. Right back. Oh, thanks, guys. That feels pretty good. I think what I put in there has like some numbing agent in it, and I just didn't want to leave it in too long because it's technically like, some type of stuff, and it's like I don't know if it's dangerous or not. Trevor says, how are you, lads? Hopefully having a better week than Shaw. I know, right? I lost my car. I have 2 dry sockets. At least I got my yerba mate. They're not paying me, but they should be paying me. Oh, I just need a sip of this. This is going to be the mint terere flavor. The real win that I experienced today is that my right wisdom tooth, like socket, stopped hurting, so I can finally use this side of my mouth to like chew actual food. It's been miserable, guys. Like I couldn't even like bite into a burger, and I can't wait to like eat a piece of fried chicken, eat a ribeye steak, and just and it's just been like lightly cooked scrambled eggs. It's been like beans, just drinkable stuff, yogurt, and I'm happy that like I can start eating the good food again. Klaus says, well, getting attention from MSM is kind of a win for the red pill in my book. The phase of ignoring is over. I agree with you. That's a nice positive thought. Secular World says, funny to think we're all on our desktops and we're work from home. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Let's just, okay, there's about 30 seconds. Let's just see. I think they're talking about.
We asked you, our viewers, for solutions to combat the loneliness pandemic. The response was absolutely incredible. We've got great ideas for you when Morning Mika returns.
Damn it. I wish I could actually find that video. I'd love to hear what their solutions are. It's not on this one, so maybe I can find it. I do want to go, yo, Big shout out to Caesar. Oh shit. Oh, damn it. I'm sorry. I fat fingered it. The horn is right next to the fail button. Big shout out to you. I'll even give you the trumpet on that. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate that. And Caesar asks, why do you think TradCons beat the Red Pillars? The reason I think that they did we lose the war? I don't think the war is over, but I do think a lot of the major battles is gone. And the reason I believe that is because I think that the TradCons have kind of successfully been able to hijack a lot of the platforms or push them away. You know what I mean? And I don't think the Red Pill has successfully mounted a response to the TradCons. We were hoping to get that debate with Myron and you know, the TradCons that were pushing this. I think Sovereign Bra was one of them. And then that never happened. We got Pearl and Michael Knowles. That was interesting. We got Rollo on Timcast, which was okay. We got James Sexton talking to Matt Walsh, which, you know, really didn't, it was an okay interview, but it didn't address any of the main concerns. I think James Sexton has like a very compromising kind of, rhetoric towards all this, which is fine, but I don't think it solves any big things. And at this point, the true reason I think that they beat it is because I see a lot of the Red Pill influencers trying to pivot away at this point. And a lot of them are demonetized. And I think a lot of the Red Pillars are struggling to find what happens next. You see this on Fresh and Fit. Their show hasn't been the same. Their after hours hasn't been the same. You can see Myron, they've been experimenting with new things. They've tried the dating thing. Myron just did an IRL stream. Pearl's kind of in the same situation. You know, her show is she's not going to do the pregame show anymore. She's trying to figure out what to do next also. Joker made a video basically talking about the same thing, saying, you know, he doesn't know how many he can, you know, do the women videos for. He'll still do them, but he's shifted towards politics. So if you go on his channel, there's a lot of political videos now. So I just think that the Red Pill focused so much on self-improvement, or it was just so focused on bashing the women because everyone was going through a collective Red Pill rage. That's what brought them up. And I think they're doing a bad job of working together to figure out what men do next. And the Red Pillars I think the Red Pillars have been routed, and they need to regroup and figure out what the new talking points are going to be and what the new goals are going to be. So it seems like everyone's fishing around to try to figure out what to do next. And that is the reason why I say that. Maybe it's a little clickbaity, but it is really what comes to mind when I think about that. Robert Spencer says, because they essentially agree with the feminists. That was the TradCon accusation. That was actually what Sovereign Bra in the fall of 2023, when you had the great, as I called, the great schism of the TradCons and Red Pillars. That was the accusation, is that Red Pillars are no different than feminists. The ironic part about it is that Red Pillars, at least some of the time, would call TradCons feminists, in the sense that TradCon advice tends to enable feminists. So both sides were accusing each other of like the wrong strategy. And, you know, basically TradCons are saying if you support Red Pillars, you're supporting the destruction of the masculine ideal in the same way that feminism destroyed the feminine ideal. You know, this is how you went from the housewife to the boss babe. But the part that they gloss over is that the feminine ideal was destroyed because the feminine ideal had hit a standard that was so high that it created its own destruction, because women got so overwhelmed with being able to do that. And the reason I think that is when it hit the Barbie standard, and most women just felt so insecure that they didn't look like Barbie. They're finding like, I hate being a woman. It destroyed the feminine ideal. What I believe is happening to the masculine ideal is guys like Andrew Tate has pumped up masculinity to be this hyper masculine, unreal thing of like, you know, being a Bugatti boy, whatever, being 6'4", being, you know, this, you know, overly rich and all that. And it's going to lead to a point where guys are like, I don't care about the masculine ideal. It's going to break itself in the same way that the feminists did. But to argue against accusing Red Pillars of being feminists, I would say the Red Pillars were left with no choice but to exit the masculine standard, because it's been destroyed and they're dealing with women who don't want to be, you know, traditional women anymore. So To say red pillars are no better than feminists is kind of a, I see where the argument's coming from, but at the same time, the tradcons have done nothing to help men in their situation. And if I'm a red pillar and I'll be honest, if the progressives came out tomorrow, I wouldn't trust them. I'd have to look at it. But if they came out with the family law reform that made divorce fairer for men and women, but especially men, I would support it, because the tradcons are doing nothing at this point. So for them to be like, oh, you're just a feminist, basically, it's like, screw you guys, whatever. I'm just trying to figure this out at the very least. So anyways, yeah, let's look at the comments on this video. I wanted to look at the comments on this earlier, but I wanted to save it for you guys. Okay. Thank God these guys actually got it to some extent. The first comment is 4 women telling all the men what's wrong with them. Yo, another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and see if we can find whatever the solutions. Oh, here it is. How to combat the loneliness pandemic. Okay, that's 7 minutes. Maybe we'll watch that, guys. I do want to get into It's Complicated weak men thing, but I do want to hear their solution. Okay, so, well, we got that. That's good. Okay. Young people aren't going out because it's so apocalyptically expensive just to survive that doing literally anything extra isn't worth the financial burden. People aren't hustling because we've become aware that there's no reward at the end of the struggle anywhere. Yeah, I mean, this is the checking out. This is the passport bros, right? Success isn't mobile in a world where established mega corporations control everything. BlackRock's buying, or not Black, is it BlackRock? Yeah, I think it's BlackRock who's buying up all these houses and renting it back out to the serfs. Control everything from industry to the Supreme Court. This panel is dangerously delusional. Wow, I'm proud of the comments so far. I thought we were going to see a bunch of like MSNBC fan people. Remember to like the stream, lads. Help Shaw with the yeah, please. Yeah, if you guys can hit the like button, that helps me out a lot. I definitely appreciate that. Thanks, Trevor. I got to remember to ask people to hit the like button. I always forget to do that. No young men at the table to discuss why this is happening. Great question. Dating someone at work is a very bad idea. This is exactly how I feel. It's a bad idea. If it doesn't work out, it causes a lot of other issues. Don't do it, people. Bad wages, the destruction of public third places, and the growing expense of going out are also enormous factors. Sorry, I just can't help reading these comments because so far a lot of them seem pretty good. Why aren't men dating? 4 women proceed to bash men in an attempt to explain it. You know what? Let me hit the like button on some of these. Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you. Heaven forbid we raise... Sorry for my speech, guys. This half of my mouth is numb right now because of that thing. Heaven forbid we raise wages so young people could actually afford their own places to live and have the money to go out and pursue their interests. Bet the well-to-do, that's going to be all these people in that video. I mean, Huma Abedin at the Met Gala. All these people are like elitist Washington, D.C. people. Bet the well-to-do aren't having a problem going out and finding someone. For every one guy, there are 10 women who want to date him. Are you sure? This lack of hustle and drive stems from the lack of societal reward for such behavior. Yeah, okay, so there seems to be a bunch of sane comments here. I'm actually proud of that, man. I'm proud that some of these comments saw that. Okay, so listen, I don't want to torture you guys with another one of this, but let's just watch this for a little bit. If it sucks, then we'll just go straight to It's Complicated. I'm sorry. I just have to see what they say. So let's watch the elitists give us solutions.
Welcome back to Morning Mika. There's no doubt that anxiety, depression, and addiction to technology are making genuine relationships harder to seek out and find. So I reached out to you and the Know Your Value community to get your suggestions on finding solutions to this. And we heard from hundreds and hundreds of you, and the vast...
Thank you, Mika. I appreciate you trying to look for solutions. Now, hopefully they're good ones.
Majority attributed this loneliness pandemic to cell phone usage and social media. So many comments.
Of course. Forget about the family law. Forget about feminism. Forget about expense. Forget about competing for jobs, housing prices. the first thing they mention is technology and social media, which admittedly, yeah, I get it. It has something to do with it. But I think this is just kind of a cop-out. It's just a scapegoat, you know? I hope they mention some other stuff down the road.
Like, get off the phones. For example, Nancy on Instagram writes, people are buried in their phones or playing video games. They have literally no social skills. We need to teach basic social skills. And Elsky,
of course, it's the video games' fault, right? Like, let's blame the video games for this. It's so easy, guys. It's the video games. Elden Ring did it. You know, everyone's playing Elden Ring. Now, Klaus says, now she got me. Addiction to technology.
Suggests put an end to self-checkout in stores so people have to interact with humans.
You know how annoying this sounds to me? Put an end to self-checkout. Like, listen, I don't know, man. I'm not about, like, everybody having a conversation with the cashier and, like, trying to find love at the... Like, that is a person that's paid to give you customer service so that you can check your stuff out and then you get out. And if I'm waiting in line and, like, everybody has to have this big conversation, like, I don't know. And I think cashiers themselves, baristas, they get annoyed when people are trying to have this extended conversation. I don't know, man.
I mean, there's some others.
Trevor says, the increased crime is because of them damn video games. Yeah, it's because of Grand Theft Auto. It's because of the Pokemon cards. Robert Spencer, I've been married twice and I've been in dozens of relationships. I don't think I'm lacking in social skills. Yeah, and if I have it right, you're a big gamer, right? Or like you're saying that in the sense that you play video games, but you have plenty of relationships. So this is ridiculous.
As well, Huma, what do you have?
Well, I have a couple. So first of all, I think that, you know, my son is in 6th grade going into 7th, and they did a prep session with the kids ahead of them in school. And one of the things the 7th graders told the 6th graders is that when their parents take their phones away from them, they're much more focused on doing their homework. And so part of it is balance. But another theme that I know and suggestion we heard from our viewers was to involved. For example, Lizzie on Instagram suggests join a political group or cause you believe in, or work for a candidate, volunteer, or join a sports group or groups.
How's this supposed to help? How's this supposed to help people pairing up? Join a political group or cause you believe in and work for a candidate, volunteer, join sports. Okay, sports, art, but the political group, I don't know about that. I guess what she's saying is find like people who believe in like-minded stuff, but I still don't even understand that. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like women are going to be, if you're like a liberal, progressive women, they're like secretly attracted to the conservative guy anyways. We've seen that before. If anything, this sounds like somebody trying to get noticed so that they can hopefully get an internship with like Huma Abedin's company. Secular World says, are any of these women at least some kind of social expert? I don't know. It seems like they run some kind of company, or my guess is there's some type of policy analyst.
Art centers, and you'll meet people. Mondi writes,
that's nice.
Her solution is follow your passions and get
so far it's all women.
Get involved in the community in ways that fulfill who you are as a person and light you up. If you don't know who you are as a person or love yourself as a person, start there and then follow your bliss. Run as hard as you can toward your calling, and then look around and see who's running as hard as you.
Oh my God.
It's bound to happen. Don't effing settle.
Oh my God. So this is the typical claptrap that you hear. This is the fairy tale. You keep doing you. You're going to find that love of your life. This is selling the romantic dream, right? This is selling the romantic movies. You're going to be at the farmer's market and both of your hands are going to touch the same pomegranate, and you guys are going to find love. And then it says, don't effing settle. This is the problem right here. This don't effing settle attitude. I mean, listen, if they're following their passions, they're making this money, they're working. Instead, it's just follow your bliss. This is how you get the I'm not happy meme from Coach Greg Adams, because when they're in a marriage and they decide to start following their bliss again, it's over. Run as hard as you can towards your calling and destroy the whole family. Like, this is a woman you can't start a family with. Don't effing settle. So she wants someone that's going to pay for everything. The fact is if she's a career woman, she should be settling for someone at or around her, income bracket at the very least. Robert says there's lots of love between people who glue themselves to basketball courts. Robert Spencer, this is a terrible PowerPoint. A shot, yeah. That very much is. Big ass blocks of text. It's very left brain put together, not very right brain oriented. iTrevor says, don't settle. Kevin enters the chat. Buy a dog and die alone. Exactly. I even got a shout out to Kevin Samuels. Yeah.
Simone, what do you think about that advice?
I love that. I love it. It's like a motivational shake. I'm here for it. You know, I think that
motivational shake, in other words, copium. It's copium.
We need the motivational shake.
How about coming to the table with a plan? How about like when you're on a date and you're asking them like what you're looking for to the guy? How about saying like, yeah, I've been working in my career field for about, 5 years, 10 years even. And, I'm doing great. I got no debt. I've saved up, a nice chunk of cash. I'm ready to settle down. I'm ready to put that into a house. I'm looking for someone the same. Sounds like you got a good job. Maybe we can, put things together and try to create a house. Like, how about that for a solution? Like, at least kick some of that stuff around, but they won't even go there.
If there are feelings of hopelessness
Yo, Coke Addiction, welcome in. Appreciate you being here. Rest in peace to Kevin Samuels. Absolutely.
That accompany these feelings of loneliness. So I love that advice. Viewers also weighed in on some workplace solutions along those lines. For example, Jessica on Instagram said that, folks should go back to work in person a few days a week. Know your coworkers, especially people.
Man, this sounds like some corporate claptrap to get people back into the offices because the commercial real estate investors are getting pissed that like a lot of companies don't need to rent out anymore. Let's just go back to work. Let's just go back in time. Even though we have technology that makes it cheaper for us to work at home and we can all save money on commuting and we can have more sleep and be happier and more healthy and all these things. Let's try to go to work in person and, just go out there and go to your local businesses and shop there too at lunchtime and spend $30 when you can just eat at home with all these other benefits. Get rid of the overwork mindset. Many are too tired
people
after
in their
work
20s and 30s. And Jenny wrote, get rid of the overwork mindset. Many are too tired after work to hang.
That's because the economy's so bad, they have to work this much to survive. Motivation for whom, Klaus says. Robert Spencer says, Huma looks like she's stifling laughter. Like even she doesn't take it seriously. Secular World says, their premise is that boss babes must find someone who can keep up with them or even surpass them. Yeah, I mean, it's not feasible. If you're a boss babe and you can't marry an employee because you're too good for it. Like when men were bosses, men were expected to marry an employee, an intern, the assistant, because I guess everybody was meeting each other at work. I mean, I don't think he was like met another female CEO and was going out with her. But it's like when women are the boss babe, they don't want to like, go out with just one of the line staff guys who's a decent guy. No, they can't do it. No way I'm doing much better from my desk. Yeah, exactly. Man, one of the best parts of work from home too is just like not having to deal with like the annoying office talk. I remember when I worked at child support, I worked in a cubicle, and one time I had this cubicle by the microwave because we had these little communal microwave mini kitchenette things. And the nastiest smells would come out of this microwave. Like people had their like smart ones or whatever. The stuff people would microwave was so disgusting to me. And then like, working from home, it's just nice to like not have to worry about that. And sometimes coworkers really do smell. I'm not going to sit here and sell myself as smelling like roses myself, but sometimes that's a thing. And then people come up to you, man, they just ask you annoying stuff while you're trying to work sometimes. Like that's like not work related. And it's like when you're working from home, there's just less BS. It really is. Anyways, that's my rant. Klaus says, I couldn't even if I wanted to. Only limited shared office space left. Oh, yeah. Well, your company probably downsized because they're just like, everybody was probably like, I'd much rather work from home. And the company's like, great. I mean, we'll save a few bucks. I mean, it's smart.
Now, Jen, I agree with this advice. Do you think that's accurate? I know so many people that are like, oh, I just want to zoom in. But people need to go to work and then go out after, hit the happy hour.
I totally
see that. This is all corporate bot nonsense. This is all about trying to stimulate the economy. It's like we need to get commercial real estate making money again. We need local businesses that used to cluster around office buildings to make money again. Also, the cities can get more tax money. And this is all just gaslighting to get people to give up their freedoms and go back into spending money on things that they don't really have to spend money on.
Agree. I mean, look, there's a lot of benefits. Technology is amazing. But here's the thing you miss out on if you don't show up to the workplace. You miss out on meeting mentors. You miss out on making friends with people you work with. You miss out on just being there and present to be able to take advantage of.
Hell no. How about a freaking 4-day work week and we got 3 days off and then we do other community-based stuff that isn't all of us driving 30 minutes to downtown and we meet people that way. I mean, people meet online. It's fine. I just am very distrustful of this. Like, it's way too like fake positive mindset. It's the kind of thing you'd hear like in a corporate meeting. All these people are like LinkedIn aficionados. You know what I mean? Robert says, fish, don't stick that in the microwave. Ugh, that sounds so nasty. Secular World, I knew that was coming.
Opportunities.
Exactly.
And maybe you miss meeting your future spouse. I don't know. You don't have to meet them at work, but I totally agree with that point. We had a couple more things from viewers. So many of our viewers said communication is key if we want to fight this loneliness pandemic. No question about that. So Carol on Instagram wrote, we have to talk to young adults and educate them on what's going on. And Kelly said, we can fix it by listening. How are you? How is your day? The most underrated question ever. Such good advice. And Karen had an idea too. She wrote, girls need to start asking boys out. Boys are immature and even more so after COVID.
Oh my God. She made a good suggestion, but then she still had to insult the guys in the process. It's like, couldn't we have just, after the comma, just left this out? Like, girls need to start asking boys out. Like, yeah, why not? Why not? I'd give it to them. Be like, you know what? I actually think that's a new open-minded solution. But instead of that, we had to get, we had to get this. Girls need to start asking boys out. Boys are immature and more so after COVID. Everybody just has to kick the guys in the nuts any opportunity they get. You know what I mean? And then when it comes to communication, it's like the people who need help communicating, it's very clearly on the women's side. I mean, most of us have been on Tinder and like you match with somebody and you try communicating with them and it's just like a couple messages back and forth and then it's just dead silence. And then you have to come up with all these creative ass ways to keep and get their attention. So, I mean, if anybody's going to take the communication classes, like if anything, men have been taking communication classes through the pickup artistry community for years. Men have been working on communication for a long ass time. They'll never acknowledge that. Men have had to learn how to become salesmen like none other before because you're met with crickets. If you ask a woman, how are you? Look at how bad this communication advice is. How are you? How was your day? If you're a guy and you ask a woman that, please expect to be unmatched or not have a response. Women even put in their profile, they'll be like, please don't ask me how my day was because they get so sick of it. But like a woman could do this and get away with it. You know what I mean? Klaus says red pillars are educating too about the consequences. Yeah, they're educating. I mean, it's all stuff. Of course, men gravitate to the manosphere at this point because it's the only one offering some kind of solution. Trevor, women asking men, how are you? I wouldn't hold my breath. Exactly. Robert Spencer, I like how all these suggestions are from women. I know. It's so sad. It's like the panel's all women. All the comments that they got on the last video are about where are the men at? Like you have not asked men anything. All the solutions that they got are from women. Then they even put on here, and it's like, it's one thing if they get this from the Instagram, but to then add this to the PowerPoint slide, to then insult all the men that are watching this is just, it's reprehensible. Like, this is the type of stuff we all got to deal with out here. And it's like, then you wonder why guys just want to play Elden Ring. I've never played Elden Ring, but I keep seeing that game and I kind of want to stream it because it looks pretty fun, but it looks really hard though. It's ridiculous. Coke Addiction says, total gynocentric way of seeing the situation. Very much so. Secular World, in my experience, women tend to do better when the man sets the tone. Yeah, and I mean, you know, the red pillars will agree. They'll say the guy needs to lead and all this kind of stuff. It's a tough thing, and it is a thing I like to ponder about because, you know, we have a lot of these kind of isms and stuff. And it's like, well, it's female nature. It's female nature. But at the same time, like, women are behaving differently in the sense of like they're trying to be boss babes and all this stuff. So at a certain point, it's like it's female nature, but I do want to hold the women accountable. So when I see a suggestion like, oh, girls should ask guys out, I want to be like, yeah, you should be asking guys out because they're doing all this other stuff that's not feminine. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, anybody who's out there trying to pick up women, defaulting to the old rules is going to work the fastest. Braylon Barnes, yo, Braylon, thanks for coming in. Go back to work just to get me to the next day. Damn. Go back to work just to get me to the next day. Yo, shout out for being in here. Appreciate you, man. All right. Let's get moving.
But I am just gonna say this is such good advice. It doesn't have, you're not proposing to them.
Oh my God. No, it is not. I really wish someone like Coach Greg Adams would react to these two videos. I think it would be hilarious. Like, I'd love to get his reaction to that.
You can say, let's have coffee, let's have a drink, let's go grab dinner. It doesn't.
Yo, again, right? And then if you're a guy, I always do coffee dates, by the way. But, you know, you got to like smooze your way into a coffee date. But if you start out with like, hey, let's go get coffee, women are going to sit there and, you know, some of them be like, oh, you're cheap or this or that. But they're literally giving advice that like guys used to get in like the 80s or 90s or something like that.
Have to be overly formal. Women, take opportunity, seize the reins
Walk
here.
a dog.
But Mika, what do you?
Good. Okay. Hey, I at least can give them. I gotta give them a little bit of credit. At least they're saying women, you should be trying a bit. I'll give them, you know, just to be a little charitable to them. Just to be a little charitable.
No, whatever. Mika, what do you think?
Robert says, me too.
I think that has to happen. We got to move forward here. I also think people who
see, and it's like they're just at the tip of this. They're just at the precipice. They're like, oh, women should start. It's like they finally made it to like, oh, women should start trying to you know, facilitate the asking out process. I can't wait for. It'll probably take them another 10 years. I can't wait for them to make it to the women should start contributing to the bills also. Women should contribute to the down payment of the house. Why? Because all of our laws are 50-50. When the divorce happens, the house is getting cut in 50-50. You know, the spousal support's going to be based off of the incomes and then, you know, splitting the remainder and the gap between it and all these kinds of things. It's all about 50-50. So if our laws are that way, and if those aren't going to change, then women need to start coming in with 50-50. Robert says, I got called into the boss's office when I suggested getting coffee. Oh, man, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry that happened to you, bro. See, this is why. Sounds like you did that at work. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been in the boss's office. But I commend you for. I will commend anybody who asks anybody out because I know that can be nerve-wracking. So, Robert Spencer said she even said yes prior to reporting me. Really? That's even crazier. So you asked someone out to get coffee at work, and then she said yes, and then she proceeded to report you to the boss. Oh my God. I'm sorry that happened to you, man. But again, see, this is why their advice of meeting people at work. Secular World said, this is why I dislike the evolutionary biology arguments. So are we going to revert or move forward? Exactly. And you know, this is why I appreciate this with this channel. And I do want my channel to be a kind of place where guys are not shouted down for having this suggestion. Because it's like, if you suggest this somewhere else, they'll be like, well, you know, biology and women's biology, and they're not attracted to that. And it's like, okay, yeah, okay, fine. Evo psych. But at the same time, technology is so different and our biologies have been exploited to such a degree like never before. I mean, unless we're all going to take away this technology and go back to being cavemen and living like we did in, you know, 1875 or even 1952, well, we got to figure out new things because we're dealing with all this new stuff, right? So that's just the way it's got to be. So I like hearing open-minded different things because we gotta be able to throw this stuff around and think about it. You know what I mean? We can't sit here. I do feel like sometimes the red pill gets a little like as it grew a bit, it gets a little like, no, this is it, a little hard-headed and stubborn sometimes. But you know, it's all part of the fun. She even said yes prior to reporting me. I'm sorry to laugh at that. It's so ridiculous. That is just such a bad thing. I'm sorry. Sorry that happened to you, Robert. This is why I dislike the evolutionary biology arguments. Yep. Klaus, is kind of funny. Getting the woman to take the first step worked so well for Bumble. That's an excellent point. And then they got sued. And then they had to freaking change their whole thing. And the latest from Bumble is they're trying to get an AI assistant. So the AI assistant actually responds to the basically the AI assistant's supposed to do all the work for the women, possibly the men too, but it's really stupid. But it's like it's probably going to do it for the women, because let's be honest, like if the women are getting like 50 matches, then their AI is like sifting through guys, and then, you know, a guy's getting like 1 or 2 matches unless you're like that guy. I don't know. It's just really weird. And then the men are going to get smarter. The men are going to figure out what to say to the AI to get the AI to then say, okay, talk to this guy. Then you're finally talking to the actual woman. Then you start with the pickup lines, you know.
Have the ability to be leaders on this. So like one of you read advice from a viewer about getting involved in political campaigns or community things. Guess what?
Yo, this is sad as hell. We had no suggestions from a guy on that.
But a lot of those things are online, they're remote. So it's like if you run a community organization, be a leader and require the community to show up, because we got to get people, and I say this to companies and places where people work, bring them in, come on now. I think hybrid is the future. You got to have some in person.
Yes.
Mental health, of course, is a huge aspect of this. And I heard from 2 therapists.
Don't worry, guys, we're almost there. I just have to hear the rest of it because it sounds like there's a couple more slides. And then we got to see what the comments say. This is just too good.
I'm going to close by sharing. The first therapist I heard from is Joanna Kaminsky. I actually know her, so she texted me. And she said this: the subject of dating is super...
All right, so here comes the therapist that's also a lady. Let's see what she had to say. The subject of dating is super complicated on so many different levels. Yes, young people are feeling lonely and disconnected, but often they don't understand themselves or don't want to feel uncomfortable. What could be done? Okay.
Complicated on so many different levels. Yes, young people are feeling lonely and disconnected, but often they don't understand themselves or don't want to feel uncomfortable. What could be done? Join more community-oriented systems. Have your eyes open. Get out of your comfort zone. That's a big one. Talk to others. Stop obsessing about what is happening on social media. Be uncomfortable. Join clubs and go to the places that are different than you know, and you might find them interesting. And here's the funny one, guys. Joanna's, I mentioned I know her. Her husband, Peter, he's also a therapist. And he's the guy who stopped me on the street. Okay?
Oh,
so there you go.
Not really sure what that is, but it sounds like this other lady's married also. I don't know, but, you know, I'm sure that therapist, if I'd have to guess, she's probably older. It's just probably stuff that worked in their time.
Here he is. He's the one who stopped me on the street when I was crying, and he wrote a blog post.
Okay, so now we finally got the male therapist who's married to this female therapist, and he's probably going to give us a solution. Though, you know, it's probably going to be something that's heavily couched in this kind of corporate rhetoric, because that guy's got to say all the right stuff too. He's surrounded, basically. It's a real blink twice if he needs help kind of situation. Robert says, Huma still looks like she's about to crack up. She does look like she's about to laugh. Thought bubble, oh, you morons. All this advice is for women. Yeah, it is.
He's a therapist as well, and his is kind of introspective here.
Let's see what he has to say.
Just as we are encouraged to reduce time from our digital world, we can individually make the choice to engage, at least at times, in situations that encourage an organic approach. Join the proverbial hiking club. Mix and mingle somewhere. Somehow, while you take a trial sabbatical from swiping on a dating app on your phone, there are already some promising signs that this is happening. Become attracted to someone over time rather than front-loading the experience by expecting it from the start.
See, this is all stuff that's just designed to cater to women. Become attracted to someone over time. This is the type of stuff that women will try to sell you in the sense of like, oh, well, we need to be friends first, which we all know is kind of BS, right? Instead of front-loading and, you know, and expecting it from the start. And like, oh, we'll stop expecting sex too soon. This is just another hit on guys. This is just, you know, something to make women feel like, oh, yeah, see, we're right in our thinking. Of course that's true. But it's like if you're going to be a guy and you're dating and you're not going to waste your time, like you have to get in there and you have to make moves and you got to escalate and you got to make things happen. Otherwise, you're going to be, you know, in the friend zone and you're just going to be the backup Billy, and then that's it. Seek the flesh and blood experience rather than a digital facsimile.
Seek the flesh and blood experience.
So he's like, get out there, stop doing it digitally. But at the same time, I don't think these people suggested anything other than, we'll go outside and stop using the apps. That's all we got. Braylon Barnes says, during the Me Too era, the work environment at my job has gotten to the point where most of the men that I knew chose to take the stairs instead of the elevators. Well, yeah, I mean, they don't want to risk being in a room alone. And God forbid they hear from HR later on. I mean, Robert here in our chat asked someone a coffee, and he got spoken to by the supervisor. And this is after the person said yes to him, which is even crazier. I'm sorry. I find that so funny. I mean, I feel sad about it, and I'm sorry that happened, but damn, I can't believe she was like, yes. And then that was that. She could have said no. And then if you kept pushing, then she probably could have went to the boss, but I don't know. You know what they say about those single lonely guys? They're dangerous, Robert. Who's the demographics? Says Secular World. Robert says, I tried to join the proverbial hiking club, but everyone kept grunting.
Rather than a digital facsimile. Yikes. Oh. That's kind of scary, but it's true. We need to see each other in person and feel the reaction you get from talking to someone and being in their presence. So a lot of great ideas. Thank you guys so much. We want to continue this important conversation. And
okay, yeah. So nothing happened in that conversation. Let's see what they got to say. Before the internet and cell phones, there were these things called books, magazines, and newspapers that people would read alone or in public. You wouldn't bother someone reading. Introverts are not new. They're on cell phones now. This is an interesting point. I mean, it's just like, it's the same thing. You know, if someone's reading or doing this, whether it's a cell phone, I think she's saying that, I kind of interpret this as she's saying this whole cell phone argument in the social media is just kind of a scapegoat. It's like, listen, it's not like people were different back then. They were on internet, or they were on newspapers, books, magazines. I think it's an interesting point. The difference now is that all the kids are on the phones. A group of kids in the 90s talking is now 5 kids separate on all on their phones. Nothing like a bunch of 40 and 50-year-old women to tell teenage boys they are immature and should change. Man, this guy's name is Bitter Paul, but let's just be honest. This is a good comment. The issue is that most women want the top 30%. Thank you. The guys are trying. The women reject them because they don't make 100K, aren't 6 feet tall. There you go. See what the replies say. Society dodges acknowledging this every chance they get. Yeah, these guys get it. A bit ironic that they're having this discussion remotely, isn't it? That's a really freaking good point. Even they couldn't be bothered to go into the studio. One thing I discovered during the pandemic is that the company of other people is highly overrated, particularly when you're in a situation where you have no choice about the people who are around you, i.e. the workplace. I do Zoom meetings with colleagues twice a month. I save 3 hours per day in commuting and getting ready for the office. Not to mention the gas money he's saving. He's lowering his risk of an accident, God forbid. He's also getting more sleep because he doesn't have to spend this time getting ready earlier for work. He might even be able to get a more balanced breakfast in, for crying out loud, because he can sit there and make breakfast. He gets a little bit more sleep. He can make breakfast. He's not getting pissed off and having his blood pressure get raised because he's dealing with traffic. I mean, there's just so many benefits. I think it's a woman. Mika lost everyone when she told companies to bring people back to work. The majority loves remote work. Thank you. Yes. These basic organic encounter. Go to a bar and have 2 martinis for starters. Get to know the bartender. Tip good. So 4 older, wealthy, attractive, already established women sharing advice for those younger. And what about the lonely older people? Yep. She gets it. We'll read a couple more comments. Then we'll head over to Robert Spencer. Robert. Sorry. I saw your name, Robert. I was like, oh, did he just... Excuse me, to the Weak Men video. Such good advice for extroverts. It should also be noted that it is totally okay to work from home, have a very small circle, and avoid people in a general sense. Extroversion socializing is great for some folks, but it's not for everyone. It should not be touted as good or normal. That is hugely problematic. All right, this guy's going on. They made sure not to include one important solution: pay people more. All right, so that's that. So now let's get into the weak men. So these are going to be the weak guys that they're talking about, and we're going to see what they got to say about this. I just need another sip of this, but that was wild to see. And the crazy part about this is that this was posted just 2 weeks ago. So it's not like this is an interview from like 2017 or 2013. Like, they should know better at this point, but they don't. And it's like, this is what they're still talking about just 2 weeks ago. All this stuff has happened. The entire Andrew Tate phenomena has happened. All this stuff on YouTube, you know, has happened. Scott Galloway, I mean, they even showed Scott Galloway on some of this stuff, and they couldn't think of nothing productive to say.
Masculine man means accepting the burden of others. Why would anyone want to be a man by If being a masculine man means accepting the burden of others, why would anyone want to be a man by that definition?
Where did that definition come from?
That's an interesting question.
You tell me.
Man-made.
Well, it came from, you know, Tradcon's Everyone's Dad. Also, yeah, by the way, It's Complicated channel. If you guys aren't subscribed, please hit him up. Makes good stuff. I might need to put that up a tiny bit. Okay. Trevor says, YouTube comments when there are no bots are so much more refreshing than on Reddit X. Yeah, I don't think there were bots in there. It did seem like a pretty sane YouTube comment section, which is good.
Does society shame men more for being strong and masculine, or does it shame men more for being weak?
Definitely shames men more for being weak. I mean, I think women just expect a man to be masculine and the leader.
It shames.
Well, we definitely just saw 2 videos of women shaming. I don't even want to call those guys weak. Those guys aren't weak. We need to take back some of these words, man. Those guys just aren't taking a bad deal. You know what I mean? They're doing what's best for them. And you know what? Walking away from what society expects of you, it does take strength and courage to do that.
It's men for being weak, and that's a good thing.
Shaming them for being weak, for sure.
Why do people think that society shames men more for being strong and masculine than it shames men for being weak?
Because it's like a social construct that men are supposed to be tough and like not have feelings, and that they're not allowed to have the same vulnerabilities as women.
Weak to me doesn't mean how much you can lift. It means how strong you are from the inside.
I mean, I think it...
Hey, man, you know, well, I like it when people talk like that. I appreciate what that guy had to say, you know. I think he's given some kind of hope. But yeah, it is. It's more than just being 6'4" and, you know, squatting 350.
Strong man is confident in who he is, but people are kind of getting more and more attacked for that, so it's hard to be confident in who you are if you feel like you're going to get hate for it.
What constitutes a weak man versus a strong man?
Oh my God. Okay, here we go.
Their feminine energy, how much they lean into their feminine and how much they embrace their masculine.
Yeah, because the weak men be acting like a bitch.
99.
Oh, man. That's... What did we expect, guys? What did we expect?
% of America think that a weak man is one that has more emotions or is a little bit more emotional and expresses his feelings more. I see a weak man as someone who doesn't share their emotions or doesn't know how to communicate them or doesn't really know how to process them in a way.
A weak man.
See, so that's going to be the guy that doesn't want to commit, right? Like, it's funny because what we're seeing is like a vulgar version of the same stuff of what we saw in that kind of corporatized version in this MSNBC video with Huma Abedin and the gang, right? Like, they're basically kind of saying the same thing but in nicer language, where these folks are more rough and raw from the streets, and they're just kind of being more visceral about it, you know? And it's like, they're going to call Chad, who's pumping and dumping them, weak because he doesn't want to commit, or he's just not opening up about his emotions. Because, you know, the minute you open up about emotions, it's over. Game's over. She's gone. You're getting torn up from the inside. Divorce incoming. And that is the power that you have. But it's like women are always trying to get you to open up so they can see under the hood and then throw back at you whatever your insecurities are. So that's actually being strong, is not opening up your guts and sitting there and confiding in them everything. But they're going to attack you and say you're weak for that.
And is someone that, or a weak person, doesn't have enough strength to stand up for themselves and their opinions and their rights.
A weak man has no belief in God.
That guy's going to be the Tradcon, so he's going to be contrasted with this gentleman.
Why don't we have those same stipulations for women?
Maybe because most women do stand up for themselves.
It's like when women have emotions, they get like a pass, like, oh, like that's a woman, you know, they think with emotion, and they can't really, like, they're more emotional in a sense.
Does a woman have to be a feminist or masculine to be considered strong?
No.
They get a pass either way. I mean, listen, if you're a boss babe feminist, you're strong. If you're a woman who's a mother and you're feminine, you're strong. You know what I mean? But it's like for they can live in both worlds. They can live in the gray area. They can be traditional. They can be feminist when they want to be, and society's going to celebrate them for it. Klaus says, now we're back at the shaming game. Nobody falls for that anymore. Exactly. And it's like, you know, the shaming work if there's no actual laws stopping you. And it's like at this point, guys are figuring out, you know, I don't have to give my money and my labors away for free. And we're trying to figure out how to avoid the traps of that way better.
I feel like that's something that has to do with what's being portrayed and what's being put on to the women. You got to be like this in order to be a strong woman. You got to be like this to be a strong man. So the women are taking back their strong. That's what I'm saying. The women are taking over.
Why don't we have those?
The women were able to work together, or however they did it, to affect the political world and get feminism in. And it's like the one thing that I'm always kind of disappointed at when it comes to like the manosphere, and I get why the manosphere doesn't have this, but it's definitely more like individualistic advice. It's like, here's how you up your game. Here's how to be good at pickup. Here's how to do this. Get in the gym, lift. Here's how to get laid, all this stuff. But that only helps, in my opinion, with the front end. That's like how you get the chick. That's how you get into bed and all this stuff. But when it comes to the long-term end game of like family creation and marriage, the only way we might have a chance of solving that is if men altogether, whether or not you're on the Andrew Tate level spectrum or you're just a normal guy working at a grocery store, unless all those guys work together with the common goal and are all on the same page, maybe we'll have a chance of having political change. And I do hope the next iteration of the red pill has more like collective advice or a collective push for some kind of common goal. Yeah.
Same stipulations for women.
We do, but it's in reverse. A woman needs to lean more into her feminine versus her masculine. They talk all the time about a masculine woman. We get equally hated as weak men.
By today's standards, wouldn't the Beatles and Michael Jackson be considered weak men despite them being adored by women?
In today's society, yeah. They'd be considered weak, yeah.
Why is that?
It's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, you think of like the king of pop, Michael Jackson, like physically speaking. You know, that's another reason why, like, it's interesting to think about. I always think of like Tesla, like Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla, I think he even died like a virgin. But he cared about his science and whatever he was into so much. Like he even lived, I think, in a hotel room, and I think he was forever single. You might even be able to say that about Newton or some of these other people. But like, if Nikola Tesla was born in today's day and age, I feel like he would be shamed to like go to the gym and like start a drop shipping business. That guy, like, we would not have alternating currents and like whatever, you know, electrical inventions or whatever it is he created. You know what I mean? Because he would have just been like shamed into like, stop doing what he's doing, get in the gym. You got really skinny arms, Tesla. You know what I mean? So it's like at a certain point, like that advice sometimes seems like trying to fit everybody into a square hole when not everybody's like that. Secular World says, in short, a strong man is one that chooses to be wise in their day-to-day decisions and actions. Yeah, and when people try to shame you for making wise decisions, like you have the strength to stand up for it. And, you know, whatever your values happen to be, as long as that is who you are truly, you stand up for them and you don't kind of let your will be bent to other people's, or don't let the bullies get to you, you know. Now, Michael Jackson, you know, if he was sitting there worried about going to the gym all the time or whatever, or the Beatles instead of working on their music, we might not have gotten some of these amazing songs like Thriller and all that stuff.
I think because they're not like super masculine, they're like a little feminine.
At the end of the day, everybody's going to look at them for their music. And when their music comes into play, nobody's thinking that they're weak.
Music. I really, I think one of the reasons that musicians are so attractive is because they can be vulnerable, and I think that men need to see that and need to see that they should be able to do that. And for some reason, when you hold a piece of wood that makes music and you have a microphone and you have a voice that people can identify with, you can be vulnerable. But when you're just a regular person, you can't. And I don't know why that is. And hopefully we can change that.
Why don't women shame each other for being weak the same way men shame each other for being weak?
It's because women just aren't held to that standard. And since they're not held to that, they won't be shamed. They're even encouraged to not have the accountability. For them, they can live in that world. But if you're a guy, it's like, hey, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You're dangerous to society, just like we saw in the last video. You're not trying hard enough, right? For women, they can just kind of rely on that damsel in distress archetype.
Men do that?
They call each other simps and beta males all the time.
Yeah, that you got me with that one. I think that...
I mean, and it's true. The Tradcons are like, you red pillars are no better than the feminists. The new word was degenerates. You guys are a bunch of degenerates. You're enabling degenerates. That was from the Tradcon side. We just heard from the progressive liberal side that all you single, lonely guys are dangerous, in fact. You're dangerous. We need to keep an eye on you. There should be like 24-hour surveillance of all you guys. Robert Spencer, weakness is a strength for women. Yeah, they can play to that angle for sympathy.
Women tend to support each other more than men do.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Man, that's a great point. Men need to support each other also.
That's the problem that we have as men. It's a competition with us. We want to be better than the next man. With women, they uplifting each other, and that's why they're gaining their feminism. They're gaining that back because they're learning to stop beefing with one another. That's what guys do. We beef trying to be better. That's the issue.
Are women?
It's funny because like. I think a red pillar on Standard would say, well, men understand brotherhood and honor. Like, I can imagine, like, Myron Gaines tweeting something like that, or Andrew Tate tweeting something like that. And, Andrew Tate, to be fair, has disavowed the red pill and claims to not be that. But let's just say these manosphere bigwigs, so to speak. And it's funny, they'll be like, well, women don't understand friendship. Women don't understand friendship. But it almost seems true of both sides, because it's like women can at least band together and get some political change done. Men need to figure out how to do the same under this system, which admittedly is tough at this point. And it reminds me of the Barbie movie. Now, I did see the Barbie movie, and I did see it in theaters, but I was tricked into seeing it. What happened was I got to explain all this before I get to the Barbie movie. The person I was seeing at the time, she texted me, and she was like, what are you doing Saturday? And I was like, nothing. That was my first mistake. And then she was like, do you want to see the Barbie movie? And I was like, And then I tried to say, oh, well, there's a Ninja Turtles movie coming out. Let's go see that. But then it turned out the Ninja Turtles movie actually was not coming out for another week and a half. So I ended up seeing the Barbie movie. And I will say, I paid for damn near the majority of everything we ever did, going out to eat or whatever. But when it came to buying those tickets, that was the one thing that she paid for, because I guess she just had to show me how, like, we're seeing the Barbie movie and she needed to just purchase my ticket. But anyways, spoiler alert, I always wanted to make a video that was like a movie analysis of the Barbie movie, and I never did it, and I feel bad, and I really should. But there's a point in the movie where all the Kens go to the real world outside of the Barbie world, and they see how guys live out there, and they learn about the patriarchy. And when they get back to the Barbie world, Ken tells all the other guys, like, hey, listen, like, this is how we could be living. And all the guys start working together, and they're about to actually change the constitution of the Barbie world. So they're going to use the political system, not through violence, but through political action. And they're going to change the law of the land in the Barbie world to give Ken some more power. And what happens is the Barbies come together because a lot of the Barbies are under the spell of the Ken. They're just so in love with them because these guys have figured out the game. And the main character Barbie with some of the other Barbies come together, and they're like, they're going to change the constitution. What do we do? And they're like, this is what we do. we need to use a man's ego against each other. So we need to play one of their egos against the other so they all start fighting each other, and then we can stop them from changing the political system. So what they do is this team of Barbies goes out there and they start pretending like they like the guys, and then they start acting like they care about what they're saying, and then they start playing hard to get, and then they leave one Ken and they walk to the other one to make this one jealous, and they all started fighting each other, and then the Kens were unsuccessful in changing the Constitution. But the movie was pretty good, and there's a lot of symbolism in that. There really is a lot of symbolism. It had a lot of great interpretive value. I did actually like the movie. But it's kind of a similar situation we're in now. It's like the tradcons or the progressive liberals, they know how to use a man's ego against us for us to just fight each other, to shame each other, to call each other weak, so that it keeps us from coming together. And, you know, if you got, you know, two family jewels in between your legs, then that's enough for you to be like, I'm a man. And we all have the same interests on that, but they keep us fighting each other so that we can't make political change. I think that movie did kind of give us an answer. Robert says, I thought the Barbie movie was great. It was pretty good. Robert Spencer, the hero is definitely Ken.
Is dating standards too high, or are men just lazy?
Men are fucking lazy. Men are lazy as shit.
I'm lazy as shit.
Doesn't help that this guy comes out and agrees with her, but all right.
I'm lazy. I'm sorry, I'm lazy. I'm very lazy. Men are lazy. That's what it is. It has nothing to do with the women. We just lazy.
Depends what you men are just weak. You're not pulling yourself up by the bootstraps harder. You're all just lazy.
You mean by lazy? Like not going to the gym, or like not seeking a traditional job? I wouldn't say that men are being lazy.
Men can be lazy, but I also do think that sometimes women don't give them a chance.
Well, thank you. I appreciate her being a little charitable. Coke Addiction says, men only join forces in war. Hard to motivate men when their stomach is full and sedated with porn. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think in war, it's such an immediate, literal problem, and there's like a very defined enemy. So men can maybe come together, and it's easier to work together in that sense. And I think at the point that we're at, there's so much obfuscation about what the enemy is and what it is that's actually harming us. So it's hard, if that's not clearly defined or it's hard to see, then yeah, it would be hard to galvanize men against that. But that's an interesting point.
I would say women's standards are higher for sure. I mean, you see on these interviews that people do, they're like, oh, we expect someone to be a millionaire, and like...
Women's standards are never too high.
Doesn't that sound kind of nuts? Women's standards are never too high. That sounds a little, I don't know, narcissistic almost.
Men are just lazy, in my opinion.
Be doing everything they possibly can. Be absolutely...
And I hate to throw around that word narcissist. Maybe not so much of that, but your standards are never high?
Act and be able to, you know, sugar daddy them up whenever they want.
Is there a sexist gender wage gap, or are women just lazy?
Most
That's a great follow-up question.
of the women I know are fucking hustlers. Most of the guys are bums. Well, not most of the guys, but a lot of guys are. Like, the average guy that I see is not working as hard as the average woman. So I think it's a lot of sexism when it comes to wage.
Why do so many people think that women behave badly?
I hope this guy comes batting for us, man. We're getting beat up out here.
Because men today are weak.
Well, then, so if you believe that your actions are based on what somebody else does, because I hear a lot of women say, you got to have somebody to handle me. Let me tell you something. I don't want to have to handle anybody. Why should I have to handle you? That means you are a person that lacks discipline. You do not know how to act yourself.
Discipline and lacks agency. I like what he's saying.
So the thing is that if you are assessing your behavior based on what somebody is or not, then that's more of a problem on you than whoever you're trying to place the blame on.
See, he's actually holding them to a standard. You know, a Tradicon's going to say, well, the guys aren't working hard enough. You know what I mean? So I'm glad. Thank you for him. Braylon, wars are easier than women. When you go to war, they're like the enemy's over there. I don't know why. When you said that, I was just imagining like a guy who's like faced with either decision and his home life is so bad. He's like, man, the draft finally came, and he's like grateful about it. Like, thank God, ship me out of here. Oh my gosh, Robert Spencer. with the $10 super chat. Women are just lazy. She needs to find a different crowd. Absolutely. I mean, you know, and it's like, are they going to call that out? You know what I mean? No, they're not. And then it's like, you know, they want to be lazy. They want someone to take care of them. You know what I mean? They're looking for daddy because they're lazy. Thank you so much for the super chat again. I really appreciate that, Robert. Secular World says, this what the world looks like when you remove God. We have left everyone to define good and bad. Well, yeah. And I mean, listen, you make a good point there. And another way of saying that is that the shared value system that a community has been kind of eroded or chopped at the root. And this leaves everyone in a kind of free-for-all, which almost puts us back into a type of barbaric setting. It's like everything else about society and technology is there, but when it comes, you see like the face of this barbaric nature come out, and more so, even more so than before, because now it's enabled by technology. I've actually been reading this book about marriage and family development in Europe, and it traces the history from like even prior to Roman times, all the way through the church's rise in Europe, all the way up to the modern day. And, you know, there are certain things that the church did that even hurt family values back then. Families back then were clans. It was extended families were a lot closer. And the rise of the church led to this more individual nuclear family unit. But what held the community then, instead of like the clan's values, was the church's values. So long as everyone was as part of the church community, they had this kind of spiritual kin instead of like a true blood kin, which is the greater extended clan. And that was changed in favor of the church. So you can say even that the church kind of had this revolutionary thing with family values back then. And at this point, so now society's developing for, you know, a couple thousand years, you can say, well, you know, about that, based off of the God and the church being part of the community, at least in Western civilization. That's what we're talking about. And now that the church has been pushed back, I mean, your username is @secularworld, right? We're living in a secular world. The church went from being a sect into being the dominant institution in Europe, right? They went from being a sect under the Roman pantheon of gods and temples to, you know, we are the captain now. Sorry. And it changed them from a sect to like this institutionalized thing with like real property and just completely different thing. But now the secular world has taken over and it's pushed the church away. The church doesn't have the same power it used to have. And even beyond that, I mean, just with the rise of secularism, those values have really taken a back seat. And since people don't have that now, I mean, yeah, this is the result of that. I mean, you know, I think if you're like a devout religious Christian, you're probably you're going to probably fall back and say, well, you know, that's your faith, that's your belief. It's still good. If you're like reading Friedrich Nietzsche or something, Nietzsche's the guy who said God is dead, right? I mean, if you're a religious guy, you're not going to like that. You're not going to say that. But what he meant by God is dead is that since people aren't taking religion seriously, and listen, anytime somebody tries to say this is what Nietzsche meant, be careful with that. I'm not doing, it's a reductionist take for the most part, because Nietzsche's super complicated. It's very hard to understand. So if someone's like, this is what he meant, just be careful with that. But since God is dead in the sense that people's faith has kind of gone away, all the values that we used to live by have started to rot away because this belief in God was the underpinning good that kept all these values up. So, you know, he's got books like Twilight of the Idols. And we've kind of been watching the rotting away of the value system until we're left with people, you know, twerking on a table in a McDonald's. And here we are. Caesar, I think I read that book. The Catholic Church Destroyed the Clans. Is that the book that talk about how people used to have family trees and church kill that concept? I think it's a different one. This one's from an anthropologist called Jack Goody. It's got like a long title. I think it's like Marriage and Development in Europe, or I think that's what it's called. I got to look at it at the title, but the author I believe is Jack Goody, and he's the guy that I was reading a lot of that talked about the dowry system. But he was an Oxford anthropologist. And I think this book came out in the 70s. I'd actually be interested to hear what book you're talking about, too. But the book is very fascinating. It's very fascinating. Secular World, I have him on my shelf. That's awesome. That's so cool. Oh, you're talking about Nietzsche? Yeah. I should, someday, like my dream is to maybe do more streams and stuff about that kind of stuff. But, I'd have to go back in. And I did read a lot of these books back in like my college days. And it's been like about a decade for me. I try to keep up with them. But some of this stuff is very, very complex. I got Thus Spoke Zarathustra here, Beyond Good and Evil. And like Beyond Good and Evil as a title is another thing, right? It's like this value system of good and evil and what's wrong and right is rotting away. So what happens after that? And this is also another corollary to Red Pill. When I first discovered Red Pill, I had just graduated college in 2012. And I think I found Red Pill in 2013 on the Reddit. And my first thought about Red Pill was that it was a watered down version of Nietzsche, especially with alpha and beta. Because to me, that sounded very similar to master morality and slave morality. You know what I mean? And it was all these things about transcending that, the overman, and all these kinds of things. And there is a lot of parallels that are interesting. But, one of these days we'll talk about all that stuff.
Why do we still expect men to be protectors based on the premise that men are stronger, while also saying that men today are weak?
I think physically men are stronger, so they are seen as the protectors. So if a girl and a guy were walking and someone came up to mug them, I don't think that you'd expect the woman to fight that guy, just because physiologically men are stronger.
Men are not weak.
I mean, listen, it's about using men's masculinity as a kind of whip against them to shame you into doing that. But it's like, as far as protector and provider goes, if they're not your kin, and it's just someone on the street, I mean, call the cops maybe, might not be worth getting involved in. And I hate to say that, I wish it didn't have to be that way. But, you got to be really careful out here what you're doing. And if someone's like, where are all the men at? It's like, well, who are you? Are you my sister? Are you my daughter or my mom or my wife? Or, you know what I mean? It's like, you got to ask these questions at a certain point.
Men choose to be weak.
This guy is men choose to be weak. This is the TradCon. This is the haircut right there.
Why are men blamed for being weak every time they're violated? And how is that not the ultimate form of victim blaming?
I don't think that men are weak whenever they're coming forward about a time when they were under violation. But I do see that a lot of men get hate, like social media and in society today, just because they think that a woman is incapable of hurting a man, I guess.
A woman could get sexually assaulted and say, I was sexually assaulted, and they're going to go right to her. A man say, I was sexually assaulted, they're going to laugh at him. Like, what you talking about? There's no way you could be just because we are men.
It's kind of the same with domestic violence, too. Like, it's a little tougher for men to come out and say, that they were violated in that way. So.
And we're stronger, bigger. That don't mean nothing. If I say no mean no. If you continue to grope me, to rub up on me, that's sexual assault.
Yeah, and it really should be the same both ways, under violation. I think that's kind of what he meant.
Why aren't women blamed for being weak when they're violated? Aren't they expected to be strong and independent?
I think there are times where sometimes women are blamed. I think victim blaming can be both genders, but I do say that it's more common with men.
It's all about that double standard. That double standard been around for so long, and it's not going nowhere.
Do you think the pressures associated with being a man might account for why so many men are transitioning into women?
I'm sure that's part of it, yeah. I think the other side can be attractive if you feel like you can't identify as a man without taking hate, without taking blame, without taking all of that pressure, all of that struggle, and you feel like the only way out is literally changing your gender identity. I could totally see.
That's an interesting question, or something to think about. I wonder how much that, I don't know, maybe not. You do tend to get these really weird situations, like, someone transitioning to a woman and then joining a sports team and just freaking obliterating all of them. It's just super weird. Maybe some guys feel that way. It does seem like a little extreme, but, it's possible.
See that.
I think it might be contributing to the feminine man epidemic, but I have a lot of trans friends, and that is such a journey And it's so much deeper than dating or how you're perceived. I don't think anyone would go through that much of an expensive, hard, life-changing decision just so that they can have, you know, quote-unquote dating benefits.
Why do people think that if you're not this macho alpha male, that means you want to put on a dress and wear makeup?
I think a lot of men think that because they're just insecure in their own masculinity.
I think that's kind of a manifestation of the kind of newer hyper masculinity. Something that's like emblematic of Andrew Tate. It's like, if you don't want to get up and do 500 push-ups and start doing this, then you're just weak. And then that's it. And listen, I get where the motivation factor, it's like if you read an Andrew Tate tweet or listen to a clip, it feels like you just took drink a coffee and you feel energized. That has its place. Self-improvement's always had its place. But what's that Chinese proverb of like, if you have a hammer and everything looks like a nail, to prescribe that for every single problem and say, oh, well, self-improvement, I think is a little short-sighted. But I think his question is about why is it so extreme now? It's like, there's this hyper masculinity being pushed. So everybody who's not that is shamed as being a pansy.
I think that the most masculine.
What the heck happened to that woman's lips? Was she attacked? Listen, I noticed the same thing, but I didn't want to say anything because I felt bad. But I swear I was looking at that and I was like, something about that. It seemed a little weird. So you're not the only one who noticed.
One thing a man can do is allow other men to be how they want to be, and then they can be how they want to be.
Man, grow up and get some balls.
What a lot of
that guy's so out of touch.
people think of as a strong man, I think is a weak man. I think a weak man is someone who kind of just judges too much and thinks they're stronger than everybody. As well, an actual strong man will agree when they're wrong and will understand they make mistakes too, and it's okay to have emotions, and it's okay to be wrong sometimes, and it's okay to feel scared, and you don't always have to be the protector and the provider in every single situation.
I could be charitable to her. I can see how if you're wrong about something and actually understanding it and admitting it, it does take a little bit of strength, and it's tough to do. It's tough to do even for me. I just pray that if I am confronted with the truth, that I have enough, I can see past my own nose enough to be able to accept it. Shout out to Kinky Minx. Woo. Welcome in. Kinky Minx coming in from the Twitch. We were all thinking the same thing about the lips. Hello, sexy. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, back into this.
What is a woman?
Oh, God. I'm not answering that one.
All right. Well, if a woman is an adult human female, why wouldn't an adult human male be the definition of a man?
Yeah, you got the biology down there. That's it. You're a guy,
I think that it is.
Why are there more burdens placed on a man to begin with?
Because I think since the dawn of humanity, men have always been given more responsibility, probably because back in caveman times, they were physiologically stronger.
Well, wouldn't that reflect men's oppression compared to women?
In a way,
That's a great line
I
of
definitely see
questioning.
where you're going with that one, yes.
Robert, you are relentless. Pincushion woman. You're talking about that woman with all those piercings. Oh, man. You're in a roasted mood tonight.
If being a masculine man means accepting the burden of others, why would anyone want to be a man by that definition?
Where did that definition come from?
Came from tradcons. It comes from the older belief systems. It comes from women shaming guys into that. It comes from that guy with the short haircut. The Bible. Not just the Bible, but a lot of religious underpinning.
Man-made.
I believe masculinity depends on your definition. What is being masculine and who defines that? And at the end of the day, what standards do you have to uphold? That depends on every single person and their opinion.
You know what? I'll give it to her. I agree with what she said. At this point, it sucks because I can see what I think it was Secular World that said that everyone's kind of in this free-for-all trying to figure it out by themselves. But if the values have eroded away, then that's unfortunately the situation. And being strong is being able to some extent to be able to see what you value and live by that. That would be kind of a Nietzschean understanding in the sense of he would kind of say be a painter of your own life with your own values and stuff like that. I tend to stay away from throwing out all religion. I think religious thought, how about that? Religious thought and religious beliefs are very important to the world because I really believe it's half of your psychology. one half of your brain is literal, the other half is like metaphor and symbol. So I do believe there is truth in religion and all that kind of stuff. I think Nietzsche kind of said a religion was done, but you can still be an artist of your life, which is kind of like almost the right brain hemispheric activity. But I'm not, like I think there are real religious experiences you can have. Kinky Mink says, so does that mean I'm a man? Well, Kinky, if you were, you'd be a very kinky one. Secular World, I was about to comment on that. I agree. Yeah, I do too. All right, let's see what this gentleman has to say.
If being masculine is a natural process, why are men often shamed to be sculpted that way?
Because people are angry about masculinity being in charge of things for thousands of years. And again, that's hard now. If you're born into this world, you don't really know exactly what it should be, what it means to be a man, because you feel like you're going to take hate for being too strong, for being too weak, for being too aggressive, for being too submissive. You don't really know where you're supposed to go. So you just got to do your best.
It's funny too, because it's like, it also comes from the stubbornness. It's like a Tradicon's going to tell you to do that because they cannot admit defeat. If they say anything else, they're like, yes, the feminists won, the progressives won. But to them, I kind of see them sometimes as having their head in the sand. Yo, Lolpole, welcome in from the Twitch. Lolpole says, I got a video for you related to the subject, if you don't mind me sharing. It's a short. Yeah, no problem. Just put it in the chat. I might have to actually pull up my Twitch chat to be able to see it. But yeah, maybe I could look at it after this. We're about 5 minutes off of finishing this one. So, it worked here. You know what? Let me just click on it just so I have it. So I don't want to lose your... oh, shoot, it actually worked. I just want to pause it. Okay, it's a Muhammad Hijab video. We'll look at that. Oh, it's him when he was getting interviewed from Fresh Video. All right, yeah, we'll pull that one up. We'll pull that one up after. After the It's Complicated. If you're still here and I forget to look at it, please just remind me. Oh, shit, I opened it twice. Okay. Let me just put the volume down in case it starts auto playing. Oh, crap. Oop. All right, I started it. All right, we'll just head back. And we'll look at it. Appreciate you being in here, by the way. Good to see you. Robert Spencer says, Tradcons are feminists. That's exactly the point. Let me tell you, when they first started fighting with the red pillars, one of the things I said, and I'm pretty sure I said it in a video on here, is that what the Tradcons tried to do, and if you even look at It's Complicated, he put out Undercover Feminist, the video, even before the schism happened. The Tradcons saw that the red pillars look at Tradcons that way, and they're like, we need to accuse the red pillars of being feminists first before they accuse us of doing that. So they tried to get ahead of that, and that's what the Daily Wire did. Matt Walsh was like, oh, it seems like feminism. Ben Shapiro, and that's what they tried to do. But the truth is the Tradcons have been the feminist enablers the whole time, because they're pushing this sort of, be the hero, be the self-sacrificing hero for a woman that can walk in and out of her traditional role, and they do nothing to stop that. Therefore, they're the enablers of feminism. Lopel says, no worries, I'll probably be here just watching UFC. How's your day going? Pretty good, man. I appreciate you coming in here. I wonder if there's a big UFC match today. But yeah, I'm just chilling, man. So I'll definitely pull up that short real soon. We're going to get through this real quick.
Why has religion been imposed as part of the men's masculinity movement, and what's the connection?
Oh, that's a really...
See, that's an interesting question, because why has religion, and you see a lot of people that are kind of big in the space. I mean, you saw Andrew Tate go there. There has been an attempt, and this is why I say the red pillars lost to the Tradcons at this point. And it's because the Tradcons have tried to hijack the red pill movement and place it under their umbrella. That's what they want. They want the red pillars to be firmly under the grasp of the religious people, whether that's through shame or whatever. And it's like that, we can't let that happen, but that's what they're trying to do. Mr. Pitt, great to see you, Mr. Pitt. Tradcons are just feminists driving the speed limit. Yeah, exactly. That's a great metaphor. And they're both driving in the same direction. One of them's just going faster, the other one's just going at the speed limit. That's an excellent metaphor.
A good question. I think just based on the way I was raised, in Christianity, that's just how it goes. Like, those are the rules. God talks about men providing and
God talks about men providing. God also talks about the things that our women are supposed to do. I mean, I think this is not, you know, I can't pull this out. I think it's Ephesians 5 or something. Right after that, it's like, you know, hey, the women are supposed to submit to their husbands and all that stuff. So it's a two-way street. HD Mart. These people are talking to a camera. Some seem intoxicated. Won't take anything literal. In any event, most of these questions are kind of tough to address on the spot, not sound incoherent. You know, I do understand, you know, what you're saying there. I mean, I get it. I still like the rough and raw interviews. I will tell you, HD Mart, I don't know if you just came in here, but we just got done listening to a bunch of sober people on MSNBC talk about the whole dating thing and the solution. And I swear their answers, if anything, were just as bad. So we are trying to see both of the things here. Oh, crap. It's trying to get me to play ads again. Skip ads. We don't do ads here. But yeah, welcome in, man. I appreciate you in here. Kinky Meeks, I'll submit sometimes. Yes, just came in, sir. From Madrid, Spain. Yo, shout out to Spain. That's really cool. I hear Spain's very beautiful. You know, my neighbor's parents went to Spain, and they liked it so much. They're retired now. They actually went to Spain twice. Because they liked it so much. So it seemed really fun over there. I'm sure it's great. Oh my God, Shadrach. I got to give you a shout out too. Welcome in, Shadrach. Pleasure to see you. Uh-oh. Spain for the Euros.
Making a way for the family and the woman taking care of the household. I think that's just always that's just like the rules. Like,
if men would believe
it, see, I don't even think it's women taking care of the household. It's just submitting to the husband. And if the husband tells you to go out there and get start cultivating the land and doing some other stuff, then that's it. It's submitting to the husband in whatever his instruction is to you, if you're going to look at it that way. Braylon Barnes, I just finished making chicken fettuccine with garlic bread. Man, that sounds really good. You're making me hungry. Finally, I can chew on the right side of my mouth. If this was like a couple days ago, I couldn't even dream of eating that.
Back in God and go back to the premise of God is our creator.
Okay, so this guy's basically like, let's go back in time. Things were better back in time. Let's go back in time. But, you know, I think anybody that's like, even like a red pillar or whoever knows that that's just not happening. Unless there's like a religious revival where 95% of the people in this country see it a certain way. You know, if they take away cheap and easy access to birth control, if we finally get rid of no-fault marriage and all these kinds of things, if we get rid of if we literally roll back and go back in time, maybe what this guy's saying is going to work. But I think most people are like, that's probably not going to happen. Trevor says 16 watching stream. I think that is a record. I think so too. Welcome in everybody. I appreciate all you guys watching. Sorry for the mumbling. I got 2 wisdom teeth taken out last Tuesday, and I have 2 dry sockets, and I put some numbing medication on this, so probably not the helpful thing. Kinky Minx, girls these days would never submit, even the way we used to in the 50s. Yeah, I mean, so it's like this guy is just living, he's in fantasy land at this point, and it's like, not like I'm saying like his religious beliefs aren't true or anything like that. I don't got anything against that. I think it's great. I mean, I would probably, if I knew more about his life, I would admire it. He probably is married. Probably has a few kids. He's probably got a paid off house. He probably works hard at his job. He probably mows the lawn every freaking Sunday, you know what I mean, and keeps his car clean, and knows a lot about fishing and other things. But it's just, you know, he's just from a different time, unfortunately, and that's just what it is. Braylon Barnes says, oh no, not Sky Daddy. What if he's saying his youth was a good time? That was the guy last week in the free love episode.
He is the one that created us and passed that on to himself, his children, his wives. Life would be better.
What do you think of the men who refuse to, quote, man up and get married? Are those men weak?
No, not at all. Maybe they just haven't found the right person.
Man up and get married.
It's so crazy, the contrast between both of those older guys. They have like a complete opposite view.
Man up and get married to the woman that you're in love with.
See, and it's just like, it sounds easy that way, but then on the other side of the equation, and we saw this in the earlier video, you remember the woman gave the suggestion and she was like, don't effing settle, right? So there's a problem here. Robert Spencer says, I want to hear more from Vacuum Lips. We'll see if she comes back, actually. Maybe she does. Oh, she does come back. Robert, oh, no, never mind. That's not her. Coke addiction. Feminism went through the church through egalitarian theology. That's a good point, too. That's a good point. Like, he's talking about God and all this, but it's just like, he's talking about maybe a church that existed way before, you know, what you're mentioning here. Tradcons are feminists coming from behind. It's deference to women away from patriarchal leadership. Yeah. It's just more blaming and shaming men.
And live with that woman because that is what you're supposed to do.
Everybody has the choice to choose when they want to do what they want to do. If you don't want to get married right then and there, that's great. That's fine. You want to wait 10 years? Great. Go get married 10 years later. You don't have to do it. So that's the thing. Everyone wants to do what society tells them they should do. So yeah, you're supposed to go to school, get a diploma, get a job. But that's not the same for everybody.
And they want you to do all that stuff because it plays right into the economic incentives for that. It's like you do all these things, you get the job, then get married, then buy a house, stimulate the economy. Now you got a family, consume. And honestly, I don't even think that's bad. You could have a very strong nation and a very thriving economy if everybody was doing that. But it's like the problem with that is like a lot of guys end up doing that or trying to do that, and then they get screwed on the back end with the marriage laws. And then you're just in a bad situation. So it's like they will keep telling you to do that because it stimulates the economy. It makes the numbers go up in the charts. But we got a serious problem. Kiki Mink says, why get married? It isn't even the same anymore since divorce rates skyrocketed. Yeah, well, if someone could just get up and leave the marriage because they want to and you didn't do anything wrong, I mean, is it even marriage anymore as far as the state contract goes?
Like, getting a relationship is not the same for everybody. The way that you might find your soulmate is not going to be the same way that person may find their soulmate. It's not the same.
Why are single men seen as weak if they choose to masturbate?
I don't know. I thought there's a big difference between like a porn addiction and a sex addiction than just like relieving yourself and doing something that's natural to the human body. Like I think a lot of people just think of it as like, oh, like you can't get bitches. Like, no, maybe they just don't want to. I don't know. Girls are kind of sucky sometimes. Like, I'm a girl. I know. We can be fucking sucky sometimes.
I got to give her credit for admitting that. Women do it too. Kinky, that's such a good point. Listen, guys do get shamed for, I don't know what word you'd say, choking the monkey, watching all that stuff. And I'm going to be honest. I'm a guy who used to read NoFap forums. I think it's bad to look at that stuff. I would never, I'm libertarian about it. I'm not going to call myself libertarian, but in the sense that I think it should be legal. I don't think it should be illegal. Now, I do think young people need to stop having access to it. That's bad. But I wouldn't go after people and be like, oh, it's illegal. I just choose not to do it myself because I don't think it's good for me. But yeah, women in romance novels and stuff like that, listen, they will shame guys, but it's crazy. I kind of fell for the propaganda because I didn't think women did that. And then as I started to date women and meet women, I have had women tell me crazy things about their sort of masturbatory way of life. And I'm like, really? That's a lot. I didn't ever expected to hear that from women. I thought guys were the one who did that kind of stuff more. So women are totally part of that. 100%. King of Minks, I flipped the bean. Flip the bean. Okay, that's an interesting. Every chance I get. If it's wrong, then oh well, catch me if you can. Hey, I admire you for being proud about it. Or I don't know, proud about it, but owning it and being honest about it. How about that?
If a guy who watches OnlyFans and masturbates is less masculine, is a woman who reads romance novels and uses a dildo less feminine?
No.
That's a great question. It's true, right? It's like guys will be shamed. You know what they'll say? They'll be like, you watch the nudie videos, and because of that, guys have an extreme version of sex. They have inflated unrealistic expectations of sex, right? And they see the stuff in the nudie videos, then they want the girls to do it for them. At the same time, Women will do the same thing. They will literally buy a 10-inch piece of plastic with buttons on it and batteries that vibrate in 3 different settings, put it into themselves, and then sit here and lecture guys about how guys have unrealistic expectations now. When they're sitting there reading romance novels like 50 Shades of Grey. And I mean, who buys more sex toys? I really wonder the answer to that question. Because I think it's probably not the guys, right? So I think we both just got to take the L on this one and say, you know, we've both been down that road. Not anything to be proud about. Klaus says, oh, there goes the fireworks. Klaus says there are a lot more toys. There you go, for women than for men. I wouldn't let them shame me for that. Oh my God, Caesar Quintana. Thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate that. With the $9.99 $10 super chat, Caesar Quintana says, I don't know if it's actually true, but I recently heard that the Bible has more warnings about women than it does about Satan. I wouldn't be surprised if it's true. I actually wouldn't be surprised if that's true also. I bet you can even look that up and find like a collated total. There probably is. I think there's a lot of stuff in there about, well, at least about like kings ruining their empire or men ruining their lives because they got kind of, they fell for the temptation. Temptation is a big theme, and walking, down that road and doing certain things can lead to some issues. I wouldn't even be surprised. That's actually really funny to think about, though. Robert Spencer says, tradcons and feminists both want you to man up while ignoring their behavior. Yeah, they use your ego against you. The problem is we're letting feminists and tradcons define masculinity. And it should be us who are defining masculinity for ourselves. That's what the women did. They said, you can't tell us how to be women anymore. And you got to respect how it is that we want to be women. And there's nothing we us as guys can do about it. And the sad truth is, at the same point, we got to be able to do that for ourselves. I mean, it seems like we need to start walking that road, And it's like, the question I have is like, what happens after red pill rage? You know what I mean? And when I say like the red pill lost to the tradcons, it's like most red pill content, aside from like pickup stuff and MGTOW stuff, but the stuff that went big was what I call collective red pill rage content. People like seeing the women get Frank Castled on F&F. They like seeing people look stupid on the whatever podcast or on Pearl's show or whatever. And now we've hit a point where everyone has seen that stuff so much. It's like, what happens next? So it's like the question we have to ask ourselves is, what happens after red pill rage, when we think about maybe what the content's going to look like after that. Kinky Mink says, this goes to a whole other conversation. Women buy more toys. Okay, so we got Kinky saying that. And that's coming from a woman too. So, that's one person. I think it is true. I mean, I think if you went online and looked up toys, you're going to find way more toys for women than for men. I'd have to actually look into the sales of that. Men probably watch more of the nudie videos, but women are probably buying more of the toys and stuff. Just FYI, Mr. Pitt says that sort of behavior is a source of shame for men because women can have actual sex whenever they please. Yeah, that's true. Coke addiction, hard to compare with jackhammer. I think that is true, says Shadrach. HD Mart, how do you guys define masculinity? Truly interested. That's a really tough question, and that's a really good question. And, it's like, to define masculinity, it's almost become this every man for itself. And it almost does seem arrogant to sit here and be like, this is what masculinity is. So, all I can attempt to do is say something, but take it with a huge grain of salt. And this is just for the sake of entertaining your question. But this is unfortunately the thing we're trying to figure out. At this point, I would say defining masculinity at a certain point is standing up for yourself against bullies. Whether or not that's somebody that's trying to get you to be used for a utility value, whether it's a feminist trying to tell you to do something, or if it's a tradcon trying to tell you to do something. But even that is a necessarily reactive thing, right? Being reactive, technically, is that masculinity? Maybe not. But it's also about taking an active role in your life and saying, this is how I want to live my life. It's about thinking about what life means to you, coming up with your own value systems, and then living it and actually having the experiences and not being afraid. And it's like, is that so different from even a feminist or a woman's way of saying they're like, be strong and independent, live life on your terms. You can almost say women invented MGTOW before men did, because they started going their own way with feminism in a way. So is it that different from femininity? And it's like, I don't even know if what I'm saying is masculinity, because is it even contrasted with the femininity? But it's like, when you think about masculinity, it's just, it's almost just cultivating, trying to be able to express yourself in the world and to get what you can to do that. And if someone says like, oh, what you're doing isn't masculinity, it's about having enough resolve and conviction in yourself to be able to stand up for yourself and continue to do that, to at least be honest with yourself to some extent. So I don't know if that's a good enough answer. I really don't think it is. I think it needs more. So I would like to hear other people's stuff, but that kind of comes into more of like a Nietzschean answer. Like, if I'm being honest, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, it's not master morality. It's not slave morality. Then there's the Ubermensch. What happens next? Okay, you create your own values, the will to power, all these kinds of things. But, you know, it is a tough question. And when I really introspect, and then it's like, it makes me think about like my father, you know what I mean? And like what I saw in my father, and like living up to that. And you know, like, shouldn't masculinity be more about just looking out for yourself selfishly? You know, shouldn't masculinity also be about standing up for those who don't have the strength, or for giving back to your community to some extent? And then it's like, are we kind of right back to traditional masculinity at that point? So that's definitely the struggle that we're all trying to figure out. But I'm glad you asked that question, HD Mark, because that's what we're supposed to be thinking about. That's what our content's supposed to be talking about, instead of just, you know, asking women what their body count is over and over again. Still, we refer to it so casually and often. Yeah, I agree with that. Secular World says Aristotle thought of it as a spectrum. I think that's true. I think a lot of it has to do with being honest with yourself, with who you are, you know, and being honest about maybe when you don't live up to a certain ideal. It's like, you know, if you're in medieval world, right, and you're not some strong guy that looks like you're going to be a strong farmer that has a family, or a soldier or something, or a politician, is a cloistered monk masculine? Someone who devotes his whole life to God, or devotes his whole life to doing whatever it is he does? I mean, maybe he can't see well, and glasses weren't invented at the time, so he has nearsightedness. So his whole life was about writing religious texts, because they didn't have the printing press back then, and he did this writing over and over and over again to get as many copies of it as he can. Is that guy not masculine? You know, like, yeah, what is masculinity? What is it to be a man? I think it's about expressing your creativity in the world and finding a way to do that. Like, if you're working towards that and you can do that, you can at least derive meaning, and something that you did that was positive, and it's not about hiding from the world at the very least. King Mink says, so us women who have those traits are considered to be masculine. I guess I have my moments. Well, yeah, that's the thing. And how does it differentiate from femininity? But at this point, if the feminine standard is destroyed and the masculine standard is destroyed, is the thing that we're rebuilding to fill the void, can that even be considered masculinity or femininity? Because the fact is the traditional roles the archetypes are gone. You know, technology has moved the bounds of these things so far away to where women aren't limited by their biology in the same ways that they were before, maybe to some extent. So whatever gets replaced to take over the human experience, the archetypal lives we're going to be living, what does that look like? Can that even be characterized as a true masculinity to begin with, if it's not traditional, right? Women goes her own way. You go, queen. Fight the patriarchy. You're a boss, babe. Man goes his own way. You weak, good for nothing, insult. And don't forget, dangerous. You're dangerous for society. If a woman does it, it's okay. If a man does it, you're dangerous, and you need to be on a list or something like that. Secular World says, oops, didn't finish that thought. HD Mart says, HD Mart made me think of like a store like Kmart. My father, I'm a 45-year-old man. Okay, yeah, and you're from Spain too. So what's interesting is, like, I've never been to Spain, and I know Europe and Western Europe is not unlike here in terms of feminism and things. But I still like to imagine, maybe just my imagination, that somewhere in Spain, they do live more traditionally. Listen, I'm sure your guys' food quality is at least way better than here. My father, I'm a 45-year-old man. thought it was weird to go around saying this or that is masculine or manly. It does sound weird to me too. That's a really interesting point. They probably look at that and they're like, what the hell are you guys talking about? That's actually really cool to hear. Anyhow, good stuff. You mean well, I can tell. Entertaining. Shall be back. Thank you, AC Mar. That means a lot, man. I appreciate every single person that comes in here, even if it's just one person, because that makes this fun for me. You know, I am having fun doing this, which is great. Kinky Meeks, I agree. The traditional roles are gone. We are all truly both. Yeah, at this point, right? And then now it's about, okay, what does our environment and life look like? And it's like, if we're going to reach into our bag and pull out values, our value bag, and start to wear them like clothes, like at this point, we're making decisions of how we want to live versus not having to even think about it before. It's just like, you're this, you're that. This is your lane. Stay in your lane. You're good. Don't worry about it. Now it's like, oh, there's this huge period of like, who am I? And everybody has to go through this like self-discovery like never before, very early on in our lives. So it is different now. Caesar Quintana, Dom Perignon was a blind cloistered monk. That's where that comes from. I can only think of the alcohol. Dom Perignon was a blind cloistered monk. He invented champagne. Wow. That's a pretty cool fact right there. I did not know that. When I think of Dom Perignon, I just remember that scene in that movie with Chris Farley, Beverly Hills Ninja. I used to love that movie as a kid. But he goes into that expensive hotel, and they're like, who is this guy? And he pulls out like a bunch of gold because he's dressed like a ninja because he's raised in Japan. And he's come to the U.S. on some mission. And they're like, sorry, we don't take whatever fake money you have. And he drops a bunch of gold, and the guy sees all the gold. And he's like, shall I send Dom Perignon to your room? And he's like, I prefer to be alone tonight. Perhaps later I should meet your friend Don. He didn't know what they were talking about. Secular World says, if you're a hyper-intellectual, utilize those gifts for humanity. If you're a visionary, build, and so on. Yeah, exactly. But with the hyper self-improvement people, they would find a young Nikola Tesla and be like, you need to get a job and you need to start going to the gym instead of like Nikola Tesla doing whatever it is Nikola Tesla does. But I would say Nikola Tesla's masculine because he pursued what his soul and heart wanted him to. Michael Jackson earlier mentioned, and the Beatles, they did the same thing and they became very, very, very good at it, you know? AC Mar, all the best from Madrid, going for a manly run, 7 a.m. here. All right, yeah, you enjoy your run, man. I appreciate you stopping by and hanging out. The masculine is dependable. The feminine is dependent. Thoughts, Shah? Listen, I think that is a perfectly, true statement right there. That is true. You can say the masculine is active. You can say the feminine is reactive. You can say the masculine gives, the feminine receives, right? Like there's all these truisms. One is like the sun, one is like the moon. You can say one is rational, one is irrational, one's logical, one's emotional. But I think the truth is like Kinky Mink says, we each have a little bit of this in both of us, right? Like let's just take it as a man. You can't be active all the time. Sometimes you got to be reactive, even as a guy. If you're a guy and you find a mentor who's going to teach you things, are you going to be active all the time with the mentor? No, you got to be reactive. You got to be receptive. You have to hear what this older, wiser person is trying to teach you. And then you take that in and you absorb that, and then you become creative and active with it, right? So it's like there's a masculine and feminine aspect there just in the soul that you need to have. And maybe in general we were more masculine, or one aspect more than the other, and the other was more this and that. But with technology and the way things are going now, it's shaking everything up, and the real problem is family creation. And that is the real problem to solve. And essentially the contract needs to be rewritten, I guess you can say. Kinky Mink says, I can agree with Trevor to an extent. Yeah, we'll get back to that.
No, I think she would be more feminine. She's learning her body, getting to know what she likes,
Why do some men believe in semen?
So when, hold on a second. Sorry, to go back to the nudie thing. So when a woman's doing it, she's just learning her body. It makes her more feminine. But when a man's doing it, he's a weak guy and he's becoming less masculine because he's looking at the nudie vids. That's an interesting question. That's interesting to hear it from that.
Tension, while other men feel like you got to get the poison out.
This is gonna go on sex being a need.
I've never thought about that.
These guys are pretty funny.
Does this have more to do with religion or science?
Science. Science for sure, yeah.
You know, the thing is
Kiki Mink says maybe he's just learning how to last. I don't even know. I mean, listen, maybe there's stuff you can learn. I tend to be on the side of masturbation isn't good because it's just teaching you how to pleasure yourself. When you're with an actual living woman, it's like there's another person there. So you're concerned about ringing their bell. And there's a whole level of ego boost. It's not just about ego, but it's like, it's not even about the good feeling you're going to get. But it's like if you get them there, you feel like you got the sun's rays beaming out of your eyes. You're like, I did that. You know what I mean? There's a confidence thing. You're not going to get that, sitting in a dark room with the Kleenex. You know what I mean? Because there's no other, it's just about you. But when there's two people there and it's like you're on a mission and you get the job done and you're like the man, I guess, what is a man in that moment. So there's the difference there. And, I think if someone is living in the dark room with the Kleenex too much, they become so concerned about just what gives them pleasure that I can see a woman being annoyed when they get with one of those guys and the guy doesn't understand that he's supposed to be caring about his partner also. So it's an interesting thing. Mr. E, welcome in, Mr. E. I think it's the first time I saw you. No one really talked about masculine high value back then. LOL. It all seems so scripted now. If you masculine, you can tell. Yeah, well, they did it, and it probably felt just more natural to them. I mean, the roles were there. You do your best to live up to that and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, now I don't know, and it's almost like the more they talk about it, the less real it is. It's like the death throes of something. You know what I mean? I don't know if you ever hear that thing where like a society becomes philosophical, that it's kind of towards the end of that empire. So it's like as the empire starts to wane, that's where you get some of its most like philosophical figures, I guess. Like Socrates and Plato maybe came towards the end of like the Athenian empire. In that sense, you start to see these higher works of philosophy and art possibly as it's kind of rotting almost at that point. It's becoming so self-aware because it's on its way out. And that's almost the same thing with this masculinity standard and guys talking about it so much. They're talking about it so much because they're so conscious of it because they're so far away from it now.
Like if you keep letting your stuff go out, you don't have as much testosterone and
he's basically saying keep some oil in the lamp.
Girls notice,
So you believe in the
So this is kind of like the bro science. This is like the no fap bro science. And listen, I'm a no fapper. I think it's good not to. I think it gives you tiger blood and you're out there and you're just like, I got to make something happen. Now, it's good and bad. You could step in a big pile of doo-doo and end up in a situation because you're just like, and then all of a sudden it's a full moon and lizard brain's acting up. And then pretty soon, you're at the child support office or something, God forbid. So, listen, I'm not going to sit here and demonize people who do this stuff. It was just something that worked for me. It got me out of my shell to stop that stuff. And then it just kind of became the way I live my life,
The whole no fap, the semen retention thing?
I mean, not like extreme, but, like some guys they're just doing it like 3 times a day.
Well, the question I have about semen retention is that how would your body know the difference between whether you're ejaculating into or outside of a woman? I mean, what difference does it make? I mean, couldn't you say that if you're in a relationship, you shouldn't have sex because you need to keep the semen inside?
You should no. What you should do
well, why does it make a difference whether it's masturbation or actual sex?
See, that's kind of what we were talking about. Now there's no fappers, and those are mostly guys who are just trying to give up like PMO or like, OnlyFans addiction. And it's typically to get like a girlfriend, and then they're just like, they're happy about that. Semen retention are like the more extreme guys. You'll find a lot more of the spiritual guys in there, and some religions, prescribe for that. Those guys are different. Some of those guys will be in a whole marriage and be like, I want to do semen retention now, and I don't want to, ejaculate with my wife or whatever. So those guys are kind of on the extreme. But we were just talking about that. The difference between with the woman and without, that has to do, there is a little bit of a psychological, emotional thing, because again, like the difference is it's not just for your own pleasure. It's for ringing their bell also, figuring them out. There's a whole 2 bodies there with the feedback system going on that has an effect on you. You know what I mean? You maybe come out feeling confident if it's like a real interaction, with meaning. If it's the dark room with the Kleenex, I mean, you might feel pretty bad about it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's just me and the way I was raised, and maybe that's a part of inward shame or something like that. But I do believe there's a difference.
My question.
You should save it up when you're in a relationship with a woman. Like, you should save it up for her, and then like only come with her. Not because it's you lose just as much, in fact.
Well, right, but I'm saying the argument behind semen retention is that you're more likely to like lose power and testosterone, and I'm saying, how does your body know the difference?
See, he's talking about like the bro sign. So he's like, if you ejaculate in a woman, don't you lose testosterone and all these kinds of things? I do think there is a difference. And maybe part of that bro science is right. Robert says, I didn't know this was a thing. Semen retention, why make it if not to get rid of it? Semen retention is more so that's more of a niche thing. NoFap had gotten kind of popular around the same time that Red Pill on Reddit was getting popular. Then there was a r/NoFap. And, you know, that started getting big. People did kind of make fun of the NoFappers. That's how you got like No Nut November and stuff. But those guys are more about having a healthy relationship and getting you out of like your hole. Semen retention is like on another level of like, either it was their own individual spirituality or they're like, you know, from India and they subscribe to some method of believing then. And, you know, like the Indians have their brahmacharya, which is like a 12-year of no ejaculation. I think it's 12 years. And those guys will go become a monk. For 12 years, they won't do that. And then they come out in this way. And this is so a lot of those guys would gravitate towards semen retention. So semen retention, you can say, is like NoFap on steroids, right? King of Mink said, let's see. Secular World says, and Robert Tantra, like, it's not like, because in my opinion, it can become an addiction. Like at a certain level, I think if you're not, because you got to think like our grandparents, they didn't have like a cell phone where they can just go on these websites and see all this stuff. So maybe they didn't think about it as much. And I mean, sperm count is down by over half. I think testosterone's down. Now, a lot of that's the plastics and the microplastics and all these kinds of things. But I think there was a difference between like our grandparents' time and now. That like they were not sitting there. I'd like to think they weren't sitting there, you know, doing the thing as much as some of these kids now. I mean, these kids are finding this stuff early on. That's the real shame, man. These kids shouldn't be finding these things so early. Secular World says, ever since I stopped having sexual relationships and fapping, I have this strong desire to conquer some unconquered land. It's inane, but look at that. So that's like the opposite for you. But listen, man, if it's giving you the motivation, then so be it, right? I mean, it's about living life in a way that helps you thrive. Like I'm not going to be the one to villainize or demonize or say it needs to be this way for anybody, you know. King of Minks, if you have a partner, they should be playing with you, not making you want to master. Oh yeah, if you're in a relationship and you feel like it's not, you know, if you're sitting there waiting and nothing happens, man, I'm sorry, but you're not in a relationship anymore. It's time to go find warmth somewhere, because that ain't working. Robert, and listen, there can be excuses, you know, somebody could be sick, there could be this, but if it's always excuses and it's at a certain point, it's over. Robert says that's sort of like phlegm retention. Don't cough or poop retention. Listen, personally, naturally, what's going to happen is you're going to get a wet dream. Now, if you're a semen retention guy, they're going to be like, no, don't let the wet dream happen. You know what I mean? But that would be a natural evacuation of that. So, you know, I would say the wet dream is more valuable, though, because it's associated with a meaningful event, which is the dream. Where if you're just kind of sitting in a dark room with the Kleenex, you're just seeing lights on screen, which don't really mean anything. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about. Again, I'm not telling anybody how to live, you know, that I'm just having a good time talking about this. Phlegm retention's funny, though. Or fart retention. Damn, do I got my fart noise? Finally, I had a reason to use that. King of Ming says grandpa had magazines. Yeah, and if you go all the way back to like ancient Roman times, they probably had like a vase or a vase with some sort of suggestive images on there. It's all about balance. That's true.
It doesn't. I mean, you lose your testosterone if
so
you
then
have
isn't
sex
it really
with a
just
woman.
all about more of just bonding with your partner rather than, you know, losing your
you know, and to be honest, I think anybody, like, once you've been in a relationship with someone and you're going on like month 3 or 4, there is a complacency that you get, and this is something you kind of got to fight against in a relationship. It happens to me. I gained 20 pounds. You know, like, why did Shaw gain 20 pounds? We all know why Shaw gained 20 pounds. You know, he's getting it in, and it was just hella chill. And it's like, let's go chill on okay, let's get ice cream now. And okay, well, I want to try this. All of a sudden, Shaw's eating more bread. And, you know what I'm saying? Then you're just 25 pounds heavier. Like that probably there is a testosterone loss at some point. Romans had orgies. They didn't need masturbation. That's pretty funny, actually. That's interesting.
your masculinity. I mean, that's the argument I hear, but on the semen retention, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree with you. There's a sort of circular logic to it, and I agree with that. That's why I say, just don't overdo it.
What is the difference between ejaculation during sex versus masturbation?
I mean, a physical woman is causing you to ejaculate when you're with a woman versus your left or right hand.
I mean, this guy's like 90% of the way there. Yes, there's a physical woman, but there's also your focus on her and getting her to the finish line also. It's not just about you. And this is, I think, where prostitution might even be more similar. I in an earlier video said that that prostitution is just using a woman's body to masturbate with, right? Because, you know, like, they're just providing a service or something, right? It's not about them. It's about you. I mean, you're paying or something like that, right? With the actual woman that you've seduced, I'd like to think it's different because you guys are both about each other's needs. It's not just about your needs.
Is semen retention just a cope for not getting laid?
That's such a funny question. You know, I gotta be honest, I like the line of questioning. I don't think I've ever heard anybody asking about nofap stuff on the streets like this, but I guess it depends on your reasons. If you're if you're one of those spiritual monk guys, if you're a celibate monk in a cloister, I mean, I'd like to think it's a legitimate reason doing that for your religious beliefs than instead of that. Now, some guys might be doing that as a cope. That's possible. We need a whole podcast about masturbation, it seems.
Probably. I'm sorry, but probably.
Man,
yeah.
First they came for the red pillars, and then they came for the no-fappers. No one was safe. Or not the no-fappers.
How can semen retention be healthy if there's also a term called post-nut clarity?
I don't even know what the that means.
That's a good question. Listen, if I had to argue against it, I'd say this. It's the post-nut clarity is for someone who is so controlled by their desires and lusts. If you do the nofap and the semen retention, it's supposed to be about getting a handle over temptation and conquering the temptation. So in this way, you'd be in a continued state of post-nut clarity. This would be I don't want to use the word enlightened, but this would be like the ideal semen retention's spiritual mental plane of existence. It's like I've achieved a continuous post-nut clarity understanding versus being chained by your desires and only being able to get clarity until after the venom is out or whatever, right? So it's like, ideally, Robert Spencer says, orgies seem an overly complicated situation. Well, it was probably easier back then when paternity and genetic tests, you know, weren't a concern. But nowadays, let's just say the child support worker is going to be pretty busy trying to separate 10 different guys from figuring out who this kid is. Plus elbows.
Post-nut clarity, it's kind of like the feeling of clear-headedness after you nut.
After you nut. Oh my gosh, I feel like that happens to a lot of men actually. A lot of men, like, they like, that's all they're not thinking with their head, they're thinking with their other head. And so right when they like get it all out, then they actually think with their other head again. And then it just hits them every time. Okay. I'm done.
Okay, that was a funny way to end it. See what the comments say. See what the comments say about this. See if there's any no-fappers that are going to really like defend their no-fap ideology. It's ironic for the women who don't do any approaching and let the entire relationship, quote unquote, happen to them to be calling men lazy. That's pretty funny. That kind of goes to our video here about solutions, about women coming out and approaching the guys. Basically, anything a man does is wrong and anything a woman does is right. That's the world we live in. According to the TradCon guy with the Hank Hill haircut, yes. Note to self, never listen to any females telling me how to be a man. That's true. Is it any better if it's males telling you how to be a man? That's a good... Yes, that is why children need their father present, so they went that route. I think he's probably thinking about more like these alpha male self-improvement content guys. This guy's thinking about a father in a home. Maybe a little different. I do think men need mentors. It's probably better if a guy could share his experiences, but as far as like anybody who's grifting, that's a different thing. Don't forget the viewers' video suggestion. Oh my God, thank you, Secular World. Yeah, we got to let's look at what he said real quick. We'll get back to that. So we got a Muhammad Hijab video. I actually saw part of this interview live, and I feel like he was kind of getting on them a little bit, and then there was a point where Myron's like, well, how about we have you debate Andrew Wilson? Which felt a little like, I don't know. He was kind of getting on Myron, because I think it was possibly over Laura Loomer coming on there and saying some things that were against Myron's, against Islam, and he didn't really defend it, and Muhammad Hijab was calling him out. Myron was saying he's a free speech absolutist and he wants to hear everybody's things. And then this kind of weird thing, he's like, we should get you to debate Andrew Wilson, and I don't think that happened. That's what I remember from that. But anyways, let's get into that.
We have these rites of passage that we think we have to go through in order to be men. But the truth is, the rites of passage that you have to go through in order to be men is increasing and bettering all those virtues which are seen by cross-culturally, cross-religions, Christians, Muslims, Jews, everyone can agree. All those things are good things. Like, for example, being brave, temperance, for example, having magnanimity, for example, having forgiveness, for example, being loving, for example, not being foolhardy, for example, not being cowardly, for example, and so on and so forth.
See, so the stuff he's listed so far, I mean, and ideally, and especially in a religious way, yeah, that makes sense. You want to be brave for your community. You want to be magnanimous for your community. You don't want to be a coward. You want to stand up for your community and all these things. Yes, that is masculinity. The problem we're encountering now is, do you do all these things for free for a community that does not respect you? Or do you basically do that for yourself or live life on your own terms? So it's like, yeah, I think what he's saying is a pretty straightforward answer to masculinity, but the question is for who and to whose benefit and for what utility. So that's the situation we're in, especially in a society that shames that.
You get what I'm trying to say? So if someone works on those things, increases their knowledge, and from our perspective as Muslims, has faith, that's when they attain a high value man status. That's what it is. So the high value man for us is the virtuous man.
I think that's interesting, and I think it is this is a religious departure from the materialistic aspects of the high value man, which is kind of purported by especially pre-conversion Andrew Tate, which is all about accumulating material wealth, showing it off, having a bunch of women, all these kinds of things, and being unapologetic about it. Whatever religion, I think most religions, and you kind of saw this with the Wes Watson and Andrew Wilson sort of debate on that stage. Fresh and Fit had the stage of like high value guys talking about what success is, and Wes Watson starts yelling at Andrew Wilson, and Andrew Wilson is talking about how it's not about money, it's about this other stuff, these different things. And Wes Watson wasn't like, he was just like, no, you got to have all these things. This guy doesn't even have money. But I do respect the religious aspect more. I do respect the virtue in these other things. I think there are just moments in a man's life where you just end up there are these meaningful moments in life where you can either rise to the occasion or not. And when you rise to the occasion, I think you feel fulfilled. But when you fail to do that, you feel really bad about yourself about it. And it's like, I feel like I've had encounters where it's like it's went good or it's went bad for me. And it's just being able, like, when that happens, can I stand up in that moment? And that's not about having money, but it is about having courage and these kinds of other virtues that are spiritual. Real quick, the comments. Thank you, Secular World, again. I really appreciate you reminding me. I almost forgot. Robert Spencer says, Hawk Tua moment at the end there. Yeah, I didn't know what that meme is, but then I saw the clip and I get it now. Secular World, exactly. It's contextual. Whatever Brian put forth, a good point. Would I put my life on the line for the 304 that doesn't care? Yeah, exactly. And then you have to ask yourself that. Now, they're going to shame you and say you're a cow. They're going to try to pull out the whip and use your masculinity against you to get you to leverage what is yours in the service of others who don't necessarily care about you. The guys are figuring out they don't care about us. They've let us down. Why should I give what I have to them? And it is a good question. Why should I do that? So Robert Spencer, so is masculinity then a sucker according to this guy? Well, he is still, this is essentially a tradcon perspective. It's not different from kind of the Hank Hill guy. I mean, he said it was cross religion too at this point. For him, it's simple because, he lives by his religious faith. So it's an easier answer to do that. But when that comes into contention with, I like your name, it's so apt, a secular world or secular ideals with the legal system that is not, based off of a religious morality at this point, then you have to weigh the options at that point,
Doesn't matter how much money you've got. That's on an intrinsic level. Yes, he's always going to have women that are going to want him, but they're not going to want him for him. They're going to want him for what he has. He is a walking ATM machine.
Yeah, and actually It's Complicated made a video called Alpha Simps, right? And a lot of the kind of weaknesses of a lot of the self-improvement gurus will tell you, work on yourself, sculpt yourself to get these high-value women. But really, you are just kind of becoming a bigger utility for them. So it's like advertise yourself as a utility, then never fully commit. We're still left with this long-term issue. I think I appreciated his interview with them because there was some challenging there. But it is still fundamentally tradcon, to be honest,
He would be.
And then you have to think if the other tradcons and the progressives are telling men to make more money, be part of that dating pool, work harder, pull your bootstraps up. And if these guys are telling men to do the same thing, hey, get your chips up, you know what I mean? Be a high value man in the materialistic sense of it. Are they that different from tradcons? Because they're kind of almost hijacked by tradcons because they're telling you to just have more utility, material value for the woman. I would at least say I can respect his more because he acknowledges the spiritual aspect of masculinity.
Yeah, I'm trying to say. That's where I feel like
but it still is in the service of the community and women. So the hard part for the red pillars to understand is unfortunately, red pillars are in this part where it's do I look out for myself? Do I look out for myself? Then the tradcons come in and say the red pillars are feminists because they're fundamentally selfish. But it's just unfortunately, we're in this tit for tat prisoner's dilemma about, I guess I look out for myself because the long-term contract has been so freaking injured and we're trying to figure out what the new contract is.
The emphasis should be also. We, in the West, we have...
That's Muhammad Hijab's channel. I'm thinking the comments are probably... If a man of wealth attracts loads of women solely for his wealth, you need to ask, are those women high value? Did he just destroy years of red pill content, be rich and go to the gym in one YouTube short? A walking ATM machine. What a line. See, and the self-improvement gurus have taken over the red pill so much that a passerby sees the red pill only as be rich and go to the gym. And the truth is that's not really what it is. It's a red pill purist. It's just about intersexual dynamics, not intra. And then, Rollo would call it the Chilton Manual. But it's the red pill got taken over by the self-improvement gurus, selling classes on how to do that, shaming men for being weak. And then the tradcons came in, and the self-improvement aspect of it was a nice entry point for the tradcons to kind of try to take it over at this point. So, I think the red pill will probably have to go through another period of transformation and find a new way to express itself. Did we finish? Oh, yeah, we did finish. We were looking at the comments. Robert Spencer says, so smart. Okay, read that. Kinky. So in that respect, if the woman has all the money, does that make the man less masculine? My personal opinion is that, what they'll say is that men need to be the provider and the protector, and the women need to be the nurturer. I think if men still have more strength, I think there's an argument to be made that men can still be the protector and women can still be the nurturer, but the provisioning part has been cut in half, right? I mean, we're competing in the same job market as women. Women seem to be doing better. They're getting half the jobs. They're making the same money. They're taking half the college seats. So the provisioning aspect could be cut in half. Now, if the woman's making all the money, I mean, I don't even know. This takes us back into the femininity, the feminine role. I'm not going to say femininity, but the feminine role and the masculine role have been destroyed at this point. So it's to ask the question, is she more masculine? I don't even know if that makes sense anymore. It's just like, no, this is just the situation. That's just what it is, you know? If I'm going to get married in 50-50 land, she needs to be bringing some material wealth to the table if I'm going to sign on that dotted line. You know what I mean? I need to feel financially safe with the woman at this point. And it's like, I'm willing to negotiate. Listen, if she's been out there from 18 to 27 and now she wants me to marry her, I'm open. I'm always about negotiating. I love negotiating. Negotiating's good. And if she's like, I want you to pay for everything. I'm 27. I've been out here in, you know, all this time. And now I'm turning 30 and I want you to marry me, Shah. But I want you to pay for everything and bring for everything. That's a bad deal. But if she's like, oh, you know, I've been working, I got a decent career, you know, I've saved $100,000, you got your $100,000, let's put our pots together. You know, if she comes to me with a negotiation, I might be willing to consider that. And it's just like, women need to learn how to negotiate this. But if they got nothing that they're bringing, I'm sorry, you're not getting a free parachute out of this. You're not going to get saved from your crappy situation. We can't do that anymore. Robert says, yes, coke addiction, there is a difference between a man of values and a high value man. Ooh, that's an interesting way to think about it too. Man of values. High value man. That's an interesting point too, right? Because it's like, if you're basing high value man on who women are actually going after, then you can make an argument against that spiritual aspect, because the guy can have great spiritual values, but the women don't want him. So, you know, there is a practical grounding aspect to that. Dan the Man, yo, welcome in, Dan the Man. Uh-oh, that wasn't loud enough. There we go. I think tradcons, red pillars, and feminists all tell men to man up, but how to deal with women is what's different. Yeah, I mean, I think they all tell that. It's all the same thing. At the end of the day, you know, if it's just like a simple man up and make more money and improve, maybe to get him in the bed, but it still doesn't solve the long-term issue. I think we just need a new negotiation with women. King of Ming says, okay, let's use our imagination for a moment. Robert says, I don't think women are wired for 50-50. And I've heard that too. They're like, well, we're not attracted for that, but something's got to give in this situation. So, you know, maybe just the provisioning's 50-50 if they're working and, you know, the guy does the protector and the woman does the nurture thing. But and that's an argument that's been lobbed many times. Women aren't going to be attracted to that. There was someone who came in my comments on one of my videos and said that, like, you know, the women aren't going to be attracted. And he cited a study, and it said that women who began to earn as much money in their marriages emasculated the man and basically ruined the marriage or something like that. But I actually went and I found the study and I read the study. It was like in Denmark or something. And it said that was only true for people who got married and the man was the provider in the beginning. Then when the woman started making money, it caused a problem. But the couples who got with each other and the woman was already making money and they knew what the deal was, it did not ruin their sexual lives. So I got to dig that up and find it. It was in one of my old videos and someone was arguing with me in my comment section about that. And I actually looked at the study, which I found was really interesting. So it's like, if you start off the deal with certain expectations, then it should be okay. If you come into it with a different lifestyle and you're basing you identify with your masculinity, you identify as valuable to your partner in that respect, and then it changes after 5 years, that's going to cause a problem in the bedroom. Lopol, you made it back. Oh, I hope you saw me react to the short. I did react to the short. I hope you didn't miss it. But all right, I'm gonna go to bed. It was nice chatting with you. Have a great night, man. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you coming in and saying hi and supporting me, man. Thank you again. King of Ming says, if you have a woman who pays for everything and takes care of you, does that make you any less masculine? I don't think so. Look, I got a buddy right now who's married to a nurse, and you know, he was making good money before. He had a good job, but the woman he's married to is making more money than him. And they got 2 kids now, and he's a stay-at-home dad. Living the dream, by the way. Listen, she's making 10 to 15K a month. She's got good money, and it's working for them. Like, listen, yeah, it can end in a divorce, but it's like, aren't 50% of first marriages already ending in a divorce anyways? if those guys end up getting divorced, God forbid, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And it's going to be harder for her to leave because she's going to have to be paying to him because he's the one who's the children's caretaker. The kids are used to him doing that stuff for them. So if she leaves, she's got the money. I don't know. That might even have a better chance of them staying together at this point. But it's an interesting question. Kinky Meeks, if so, please explain why it would. Okay. Does he feel any less masculine since he is doing the caregiving job? Now, and it's not something I've personally asked him. I think I will ask him that. But I usually see him and just give him a high five and be like, man, you're living the life, bro. But, I mean, he doesn't, you know, I've never asked him that point blank. So it is a good question to ask him. But he doesn't seem unhappy. You know what I mean? He seems like he's enjoying things as it is. But that would be, I would ask him, I can ask him that. So next time I see him, that's a good question. It would be a good thing for me to ask, you know. I do tend to hesitate to like inquire too much into my friends' marriages because I feel like it's like I have like such a hard and fast rule, like, oh, it's just not my business, you know. And whenever I have friends complain to me about their marriage, I swear to God, I know the trap of like people talking to their friends about their marriage and the friends just wanting to be a good friend, quote unquote, and agree with them, be like, yeah, you're right. You deserve better. And it leads into destroying a beautiful family. I refuse to be that guy. I had a buddy talk to me about his marriage and I was like, you know what you should do? You should talk to your father about this. I'm like, you know, I think that's really interesting. I'll just be like, yeah, I don't know. And I was like, you know what you should do? You should ask your dad about this. Like, for some reason, I just default to like, you should talk to your dad about this because he's going to have the best advice for you versus like, I don't want to sit here and be like, yeah, that is messed up. You know, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. Or not, or she's bad for that. And then all of a sudden, this guy's divorced and he's got 2 kids going back and forth with backpacks. I'm going to feel terrible about that. I don't want to be the one that sets that off. Lopo says, yo, I was out for a bit. My bad, missed it, but thanks for the reaction. Maybe I'll go back once you're done and stream and take it easy. Salam. Salam to you, brother. Yeah, no worries, man. And I just appreciate you coming in here. And I like it when people suggest stuff to me. So I appreciate you suggesting the video. It was a good short. But take it easy. Yeah, have a great night too. Or actually, it's morning for you, I think. Kingy Minx, I ask everything. I'm nosy. Did he say it was? Oh, I'm going to bed. It's night. Huh. Wonder where you are. Okay, I thought you were on the other side of the world. I ask everything. I'm nosy. Yeah, I tend to have a policy against that, but you know, if I see him, I can always talk about it. You know, he's a chill guy. Man, this yerba mate's so good. Let's just look at the rest of these comments real quick, and then we'll call it. Man, I want to do an Elden Ring stream so bad, but like I won't do that to the YouTube channel because I know people expect a certain kind of content on this. But I might Twitch stream myself playing Elden Ring and then giving up after 2 hours and never playing the game again. King Ming says, but I'm an open book as well. I hear that. I mean, yeah, I mean, some people, you know, again, maybe it's just a guy thing. You know, I'll be honest. Like, it's just a policy of mine. And even when I was like working in the office, like people would tell me things, but I would never like inquire about, I would not ask them about their families. I don't want to ask them about their relationships. I would maybe a few times ask what someone did over the weekend, but that was very rare. It's just like, I don't know if it's worth it, you know? Note to self, never listen. Oh, we saw that. Asking weak people what a strong man is, that's insane. True, right video with the right questions, but asking those questions to the wrong people. I don't really like this. I mean, I think anybody should be able to answer that. These women's eyelashes are getting out of control. I've seen car washes with smaller bristles. My question is, how do women support other women by lying to them? Men used to only compete against other men. Now they are competing against women, too, in careers in the job ladder. Yeah. How are men supposed to be providers if they're competing with women in the same job market? See what he said. Isn't that just... Oh, wrong one. And also in dating with the rise of lesbian relationships. Bit of tongue-in-cheek humor. King says, you would be surprised what I would ask a complete stranger. Hey, if it's a complete stranger you never got to see again, then maybe there's something beautiful about that. But if it's like a coworker, you know, or it does get a little weird in that way. Deanna Man says, what happens if you don't have a dad, Shaw? As far as like just being raised by a single mom, I think that sucks, man. And again, I'm the kind of person that thinks people should have both of their parents, you know. that's why I'm so against the whole single mothers by choice movement. They're those women that like decide to IVF themselves with no partner. And I think that's pretty reckless. I think it's rough, man, if you don't have a dad. You know what I mean? At least having two parents, regardless of what your parents are like, having a mom and dad that are your mom and dad, I think is a big blessing. You might not have the most masculine dad. You might have a mom that's overbearing. They're not going to be perfect. And sometimes, your parents aren't the one that might teach you how to be strong in your own life because they got their own challenges. But I think finding mentors and learning from people who are good at what they do is also very important. Having a dad is very important. But I think also having good mentors in your life is very important too. But yeah, if someone doesn't have a dad, it's a very, very sad and unfortunate thing. And for me, that's sad. So I think you would want to have that in your life. You know what I mean? But I don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, you don't have a dad and all this stuff. But I do understand they got major disadvantages if that happens. I just pray that those kids find somebody that can help them with their way in life. Man, see, $50. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, trying to get me to show ads. Not going to happen. Oh my God. Yo, Caesar, man, you are very generous, and I do appreciate that very much. And, this makes me want to promise to not waste this money on cigars or dates or action figures or camera gear. I might spend some of that money on books, though. But thank you so much. I really am humbled by this. And it's not about money or anything like that, but, man, it makes me feel good, man, because I just have so much fun doing this. So be able to have fun and get some donations is cool. But, again, no pressure. I just appreciate everyone coming in here and talking and have a good time. I want this place to be fun for everybody. Good stream. I look forward to the Red Pill versus Tradcon stuff. See you next time. Take it easy, Caesar. I appreciate you being in here. And I will be wrapping the stream up. I think we finished pretty much the comment section on this, but this one was, I really did have fun. I lucked out finding this MSNBC video because it dovetailed nicely into this Weak Men video. And I do want to try to make the streams in a way to where it's like not just one thing, but if I could find like an article, if I can craft an overall theme for the whole stream, so it's like we got a couple things that kind of lead into like the way Coach Greg Adams does it. I really respect and admire his work on that because he'll have like different articles and things that tie into the main event. So I think I got pretty lucky looking at that, and I hope to do some other streams on thing. $2 from iTrevor. Big shout out, man. Best stream to date. Thank you. Also, Caesar. I know, man, thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny that you say that. I actually feel like I had the funnest on today's stream. I think everything flowed nicely, and I'm also super happy that my wisdom teeth extractions aren't hurting me right now. So this is like last week's stream was painful, but I didn't want to miss it. It hurt so bad. And this is like my first stream where like I can actually talk quasi normally. So man, we had a lot of fun. I still want to do all kinds of other streams. There's a lot of books we can talk about that tie into these things. Man, there's so many big promises that I need to keep to you guys. I wanted to make a video on the dowry. I haven't done that. I need to do a Barbie analysis for the movie. The Red Pill Tradcon stuff still. I have a whole list of stuff I've been wanting to make videos on, and I just got to sit down and do it. So guys who actually do YouTube for a living, I think, are like some of the luckiest people. It's like, could you imagine waking up in the morning and like you get to sit there and like make a whole video all day and do that? It gets kind of tough for me in the evenings because like I go to work, then I come home, and it would take about the whole evening to make a video because editing takes a while. But I don't want to be one of those guys that just decides to stream all the time because it's easier. I think streaming is fun. And it has a certain aspect because you really get to interact with your audience and have fun. But edited videos, even though they're harder work, are still important. I'm ready for the sex talks. I think you're more interested in hearing about the Roman orgies at this point. Speaking of orgies, that reminds me of a child support case that I worked on. Well, actually, it wasn't directly. I worked on it. It was really more a coworker. Damn. See, I got to be careful what I say. But yeah, it did involve a nudie set and let's just say it's a Japanese. Well, it's kind of like it was basically like an orgy thing, and someone got pregnant, and there was like who done it, was a whodunit situation with a lot of people that they had to go through. So I saw that, and it was kind of interesting. But anyways, yeah, I'll call it, guys. I appreciate everybody who stayed for this long. I had a great time, and I will be here again next week. I'm carving out every Saturday at 7 p.m. I want to make sure I live up to that, because then we have a time slot where it's like, you guys just remember and know that, like, yeah, he's going to be streaming on this day, and then there's no surprises. It's not like, oh my God, Thursday at 10 a.m. he started streaming. So I can hear my cat. Oh, yeah, she's ready to hang out. Anyways, guys, yeah, thank you again. So I'll be cutting the stream off, and